Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you for coming. Inshallah, we'll start with the Quran recitation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر إن قرآن الفجر كان مشهودا ومن الليل فتهجد به نافلة لك عسى أن يبعثك ربك مقاما محمودا وقل رب أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا وقل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل إن الباطل كان زهوقا وننزل من القرآن ما هو شفاء ورحمة للمؤمنين ولا يزيد الظالمين إلا خسارا وإذا أنعمنا على الإنسان أعرض ونأى بجانبه وإذا مسه الشر كان يئوسا قل كل يعمل على شاكلته فربكم أعلم بمن هو أهدى سبيلا. Observe the prayer from the decline of the sun until the darkness of the night and the dawn prayer. For certainly the dawn prayer is witnessed by angels. And rise at the last part of the night offering additional prayers so your Lord may raise you to a station of praise. And say, my Lord, grant me an honorable entrance and an honorable exit, and give me a supporting authority from yourself. And declare the truth has come and falsehood has vanished. Indeed, falsehood is bound to vanish. We sent down the Quran as a healing and mercy for the believers, but it only increases the wrongdoers and loss. When we grant people our favors, they turn away, acting arrogantly, but when touched with evil, they lose all hope. Say, O Prophet, everyone acts in their own way, but your Lord knows best, whose way is right to guide him.
Assalamu alaikum everyone again. My name is Maryam. I am the chief election officer for this year. So Ramadan Kareem for all of you. It's a little bit late, but it's okay. So before we start, can we take a few seconds to renew our intention? So inshallah we'll start with no further ado. Like we will start with the first candidate, the vice president internal. So she did some here. Also, just to let you know, there is a like paper and pen. If you have like any questions, you could write them down, or you could ask them directly to Allah. That's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I'm nervous. I'm really the first person. It's so good luck, please.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Mula. I'm on my first year of aerospace engineering, going to my second year inshallah next year. I'm part of the student life committee for 2 terms now. So I joined back in October. And with like student life, I got a chance to plan a few different events. There's a coffee house, Kahoot night, and we also have like game night. And with all of these, I learned how to like work under stress, how to kind of plan events, how to work with a group, and also kind of deal with last minute conflicts and different challenges and anything. And I also grew up more like as a person, as a Muslim, and I feel a lot closer to my dean and Allah as I ever did than I ever did. I'm excited to be running for this position. My whole platform is on MSC's website. I'm just going to keep it brief here. So my platform is centered around main pillars. It's like communication, training and development, and conflict resolution. So firstly, I believe that communication is critical for success of any organization. And as VP internal, I'll make sure to have regular check-ins with the exec team, make sure they're doing okay, like meeting them physically, and also kind of they have provide them with the resources to feed that to like do their task, be able to do their task, and also kind of make sure they have found that balance between their responsibilities as a VP and also their studies. They have to have that balance. And I'll also kind of establish a communication channel for the general members, so they can have like they can voice their problem if they have a problem with their VP or with their committee, and they cannot talk to their VP. They can come like to myself as a VP internal or to the president, so we can have like that. They have that safe and confidential space for them to voice their problems. Secondly, I recognize that strength of MSA lies within its members, and to have that culture of continuous improvement. I will organize training sessions for both VPs and also general members, and these sessions will cover topics that are like time management, leadership, workload management, mental health, and these sessions will be provided by other previous VPs, alumni, and also we can have like. So one thing I learned when I was part of Excel was, and I kind of really liked it, was that work was always divided, and that caused like a trust between the VP and other members. I would like to incorporate that into next year's training, and so kind of that helps other communities to build that trust with their members and divide that work. And like the last point is conflict resolution. And as a VP internal, I'll work to mediate any conflict that rises within the MSA. I'll listen to both parties, make sure to stay objective, and with keeping MSA's values in mind, I try to kind of find a solution for it. So just like to have like sum it up, I wanted to be running for this position. I think my experience as being a member of MSA, student life, and also IW has prepared me for this role. Thank you.
Are you ready for the Q&A?
Sure.
Anyone of you guys have a question? No questions? Okay, I'll have a couple. So, what issues will you prioritize in counselor training?
And counselor training, what issues? So you rephrase that question. I'm so like
It's like you mentioned, like you will give time management and those training to the general. So what comes first, and what the important topic that you want to do training about?
For me personally, I think work management, like time management, comes first, because sometimes when we have too much going on, like we're like, oh, we have a part-time job to take care of, we have classes to go to, so we end up sacrificing one or the other. Like, I'm just gonna skip this class to do this thing or something. So I think having that time management is important. So at the beginning, we establish like a proper plan that I'm going to my classes. I'll make sure to do my duties as a VP, and also do my other personal, like be part of family, hang out with friends and stuff. And then it comes to like workflow, leadership, and stress.
So how will you engage your committee?
Um, I really appreciate the works you're putting to be creative internal community this year. And I'd like to build on that. And I realized that the internal community works like in the background a little bit more now. So we can have a collab events with other communities like finance, for example. We can have like a barbecue day, and then so we can like raise money with the barbecue part of it. We can also build a team building, so like we get to know each other more like a personal level, not just like, oh yeah, this is the event we have to do, this is the work we have to do, so that we get to know each other more personally. So having more of that.
Would you like to read the second? Two MSA members are in a conflict. Several people who were not involved in the situation are talking about it and taking sides. What do you do?
First thing, I'm just gonna separate. I'm gonna sit separately with the one person and the other one. Hear the grocery stories, and I'll make sure to like keep like the pages of three of us, so that other people don't take side or cause any more problems, and then keeping MSA's values in mind. We'll try to come up with a solution that meets at the middle ground of both parties. I'll try to keep both of them happy, but sometimes I keep them.
Anyone?
Okay, so there's a question on Zoom from Telsif. He's asking, there are some committees who receive more engagement and signups than others. So how do you plan on keeping all committees engaged with MSA activities? Because it's like your job to take in applications, right, for each committee. Can you read it again?
I can think about that now.
Okay, do you want me to repeat it?
Sure.
Okay, so like, so yeah, part of internal's job is to take in applications, right, for each committee. And your job is to make sure that the work is being done in all the committees, or that like the workload is effective in all committees, or that there's a good team in each committee, right? So it's your job to make sure that that's happening as VP internal. So his question is kind of, because some committees just genuinely tend to receive more signups than others. How can you divide the signups, or like just make sure that like there's engagement in each committee, even though some might be more popular than others?
One thing I really want to say is that for volunteer signups, we leave it open for year, like for terms. There's no like limit to it. So if we want to increase engagement like on committees, we can like have a limit of how many members can be in one committee. For example, I said was probably the biggest one for the other members. Maybe another committee wasn't as big. So if we kind of have a limit of how many members can be there, so they're like, okay, I want to participate, but well, facilities for like a journal committee, and that when they accept more members, then also like divided.
Do you have any things planned for the different members?
Definitely. I think general members can benefit from having the like leadership trainings, event planning, all that trainings as well. So we can have like a specific training sessions for general members, and we should have more have. What else?
Usually, we do have trainings, but we don't actually much engagement in council meetings or member meetings. How can we get in to go to those meetings?
So I think
Leadership training, we put a leadership training on like with the board and how we plan to train those.
yeah, so first thing to do, this year we had the council general assembly meetings with the trainings together, and a lot of people would just like come to the general meeting and then leave the training part. And one of the things I realized for me was like I didn't know the time ahead. And usually on those days I have to do the work. So if we let them know ahead of time, so they're like prepared for you know, I'm going to do this thing. And also if we have, I'm going back to that club part, if we have it like with another community together, so we have that training part, have like a fun part to it. So they will come for that and then we can also get the training.
There is a problem between like two committee. Like which one of them are like more valuable than the other. And it's kind of like getting spread and rumors and people start talking about it. And people, it's kind of similar to the question that I had before. But like people start taking like sides. No, this committee are more valuable than that committee. What would you do?
I feel like let's find the source of like where this rumor started in the first place. Like I've heard of something like, oh yeah, this committee is more work to do in this committee, more work to do. So if you find like the source of it where it started and talk to these people like, oh, what makes you think that this committee has more involvement, this committee is more valuable than the other? And then we can use their ideas as feedback and we can work on that to maybe like work on it to like, yeah. Let's make the committee more valuable based on their opinion. And just say that, yeah.
Any questions?
How do you try to maintain like well-being among themselves? Like, because I think the journals the journals well, despite the necessary for the administration, I feel like if the execs are kind of unstable course in a sense, like the internal is supposed to be like kind of like a guide in that sense that goes with the president, but like internal is supposed to be like kind of like you know, it's like, oh, not this, you know, so how are you gonna do that? How are we gonna do that? And at the same time, try to like ensure that execs are not taking too much on, they're maintaining their own kind of well-being.
So I can't really think about this and I was like, at the beginning of the term, with each VP, I was trying to like sit down and trying to come up with like, what matters they use to de-stress. And like maybe like 2 months or 3 months later, and we are checking in again to make sure they're okay. And I'll check, okay, are they doing those de-stressor that they're doing? Are they taking time for themselves? And also coordinators, we can do a lot of training for VPs to know, yeah, let's divide the work with the coordinators because they're there to help the VP. And if they feel overwhelmed, we can use the help of their coordinators and if they can come to VP that internal articles and be like, yeah, I need to take some time off. And we should provide them with proper resources so that they can do that. Like they can, they're free and they're not afraid of just coming up to us and like yeah, legal and at the same time.
Last time, just quickly.
Do you mind just raising your voice a little bit so I can hear you online? Thank you.
So you're an aerospace engineering student, going to your second year, which means a lot of work. How will you manage your role as like a VP internal with your like schoolwork?
I'm used to like super busy like I'm just like super used to it now because I have a part-time job and like 3 other clubs and an engineering degree. So this year what I learned was that my mental health and well-being comes first, and that's apparently even ahead of my studies. So when I feel like I need time off from everything and everyone, I will take that time off. And through this year I learned that how to do it effectively so it doesn't affect my studies, but also I can work on my mental health and like recharge in order.
Any questions? Last call. No? So the next committee is the external committee. So we have two candidates for this committee. We have Mariam Sayed and we have Mahir Osa. Sorry if I pronounced it wrong. So inshallah, we'll go first with Mariam. She will be presenting her platform, then we'll go with Mahir. And then they will both be sitting here and we will be asking them the questions, inshallah. Oh, she will be presenting first and then we'll present them, then they will have to the next.
Just raise your voice so you can hear online.
Okay.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. My name is Mariam, and I'm running for Vice President External. So I'll go about myself. I'm a first year student in Global and International Studies. If you don't know what that is, it's international relations, pretty much. It's a pretty small program. And if elected as Vice President External, I will fulfill my role to the best of my abilities and continue to strengthen the relationships of the MSA and maintain and uphold a clean image of the MSA. And as my platform, I think the past VPs have set a great example of what the role looks like and how it works. And I'm hoping to continue with a lot of what's already been done, but also in communities as well. Some of my goals are the following. One is ensuring that all external contacts and collaborations are well aligned with the values and mission of the MSA. So this includes doing a lot of the background research, background work and research, and using reliable resources to ensure that any contacts and collaborations like with organizations they don't hold any allegations or any controversial opinions. It is also like being mindful of the time and resources of the MSA and also the efforts of those organizations as well. And part of this is also taking the time to respond to inquiries, proposals, whatever else in a timely and efficient manner. And in terms of the image of the MSA, my goal is to continue to mind the balance between not looking too close off, as well as also not collaborating with just any organization, ensuring that we keep the image of the MSA clean. My next goal is to strengthen current external relationships and plant new ones. So this means like rekindling the relationship with the Ontario Hospital MSAs. I know it's something that was done prior to COVID-19. I was never, but it sounded like a really good thing. So I really want to start this up again, and this would mean like mentorship opportunities and long-term initiatives between us and the high school MSAs. It's also going to strengthen the relationship between the Ottawa MSA and us, as well as the Massages and the other existing relationships in the community. And one thing I want you to do once again is just really take the time to respond to proposals and messages from police. The next goal is to work with Calgary University Administration alongside the president to mitigate any challenges faced by Muslim students on campus. So, for example, what this could look like is, for example, working with NCCM and the University Administration to combat any Islamophobia or hate on campus. My next goal is to secure long-term solutions for accommodations on campus for that to further benefit the Muslim community. So this includes assisting the president once again in ensuring more permanent prayer spaces, roommate services, and Ramadan iftar accommodations. Because like as a student resident myself, I know the challenges at this year and the next I know the challenges of being on campus and being away from home. And I know especially difficult for students who like are really far away from like international students. So if elected, one of my priorities in the school year would be to ensure that these needs are being met. Because I think it's really important for not only the physical health of the students, but the mental and spiritual health as well. My next goal is to implement year-round tabling days throughout the year to foster discussion about advocacy and raise awareness for social issues. So this would mean, for example, working with Islamic Relief, NCCM, IDRF, and other external organizations. Because whether it directly affects students or it just raises awareness about issues that Muslims face around the world, I think it's really important to raise awareness and keep the student body aware about these issues. And essentially what this will look like is working tables in like Tour Junction or whatever other location
and like setting up donation boxes, discussing the issues with students that we're going to and from class. For example, now pamphlets, petitions, whatever else. Next goal is a bit of a longer one, and it's to introduce a formal structure for clear guidelines as to what the MSA accepts as collaborations. And this is something that I want to introduce to ensure the longevity of the MSA. So I believe that having like an agreed upon criteria will help the council agree and mitigate any disagreements in terms of what we accept as collaboration, and providing that guideline would like make it easier for us to not be like hypocritical about what we accept and we don't accept. And so to include like why the organization is beneficial to us, the purpose of it, and just showing that we're not just thinking the MSA logo on every single poster we come across. Obviously, like I want it to be similar to the MSA Constitution in a way that it will be open for annual review and feedback, because obviously every year like things change, there are developments. So I want to ensure that this helps to really elongate the MSA. And also it's semi-structured, so trial and error, but I really want to start and introduce this. My next goal is to increase inter-committee efforts. I think with COVID, there was like a bit of a gap between an isolation between the committees. And so, for example, what this will look like in external is, like for example, with the communication committee, to for them to get sent to us the like proposals and increase through social media, or working with admin to receive them through mail, or like finance for like fundraising efforts with the external organizations. And as for the own committee, I would like to delegate more coordinator roles and ensure greater engagement within my own committee. So I know like external is like a very individualistic role. And so my goal is to ensure that my committee is really engaged and to really build that foundation in my committee so we can keep an active committee throughout the year. And so like as you all know, with IW and other like events of the year, like a cooking team to make the dream, I guess. Someone said that. But so I think that delegating these roles would really help the committee run smoothly and efficiently. So the roles I have in mind for now are advocacy coordinator, which is to help maintain communication with advocacy organizations and perhaps even take the lead on table days. And the study coordinator, which is not something new, it's been so that one maintains strong relationships with the massages. Special events coordinator, which helps to facilitate special events, working with finance for the fundraising efforts. And then the public relations role, which is maintaining communication with on-campus clubs and societies. And as for the well-being of the people in the external committee, my goal is to keep many meetings often and to consistently keep in check with the people in the committee. So holding not only meetings to discuss the upcoming events, the plan for the month, the term, whatever else, but also team bonding initiatives. I know it's very, very important for mental health, physical health, all of that. And I know what I've said is a lot of like goals and tasks with all the roles, but I want to ensure that I'm not I would not overwork anyone, and that I'm really keeping in check with the people in my committee. I would delegate roles equitably based on what we're interested in, what they're passionate about, and what their skills align with. And I think that's something, this is something that I found to work really well with the Student Life Committee that I was in this year. And to be able to take the lead on initiatives for like the different events in Student Life Committee was something that I found really useful and something that I want to incorporate into this committee as well. And yeah, so that's what I have. That's my plan for now. If elected as Vice President, I'm obviously open to more feedback and ideas. But yeah, just prepare for things I have to listen, and I'm open to questions.
We'll take a method platform,
Okay.
and you guys both join our question.
I just want to start off with exactly what actually is my name is the Ella grant these positions to whoever is the most compatible and whoever like the best of luck and whoever only Allah knows to be the best in these positions. And right, so a lot of you don't know me, some people. So I'm gonna first stay what I am. So I'm a fifth year student in neuroscience and mental health. And So I'm currently the student support and wellbeing coordinator in SR as well. But I've been in the MSA for a couple of years now. Since 2018, I've done the first 2 years I was in services, then I took a grab, then I was internal. I did a bit of finance, a bit, it's kind of external, then now an SR. So that's me. And then I was doing idle as well. But kind of stuff. So, so my first point is, so it's kind of in three folds. So the first one is generally towards more like within Carlton, like communicating towards different departments in Carlton. So like increasing partnerships with existing departments at Carlton, making sure that we partner up with these departments, but for as Maya mentioned before, for a specific united purpose that coincides with our values, or at least falls within our values, which will lead to increased public exposure for the MSA. And then this will do two things. First of all, it will evidently increase MSA public exposure towards not only the people, not only like among us, but also like non-Muslims, and also towards the greater Carlton community, to ensure a greater fluidity and easier engagements with other departments for the future. And also making sure that these connections that we've continued not only this year but also past years are like kind of renewed, to ensure the longevity of the MSA. And then also the same realm is to increase transparency of fund utilization, to ensure that we get the funds we need, but also ensure for fair practice, so that MSA has a good reputation in terms of this. But this would also kind of tie in back to the points about it will strengthen the public exposure and the public relations of the MSA, so that for future engagements that there should be an issue and even like get easier. My other point was to specifically towards like residents, making sure that we build an MSA presence in residents, and we engage with students, especially first years. I feel like that's like the year that a lot of us come into the MSA through different routes. I remember in my first year, there was something like an MSA representative. I don't think anybody was it, but I think it's a good option, especially because I think in first year people are more flexible. Then having that MSA representative will ensure that there's the MSA on campus, and that it's also going to be a feeder for our volunteer kind of. And then this representative position that we advertise in the Cloud Explorer, and also could be a feeder to the mentorship program that we already have. Then also to continue kind of efforts for accessibility for resident students, and maintain connections with resident services and SEO, to ensure accommodations, especially, and also like provide services that we have, like for example, the roommate services that we have in the MSA. It could be like a way to kind of solidify that interaction by giving something back. And then we're on that note, I'm an oncoming residence fellow, so I think that's that way, like I can kind of contribute to this facility a bit more. Next thing is more along with data collection, and to ensure that there's like we create a database that have info of like speakers in details for those speakers, for at least the past couple of years, and also the interactions with them. Whether there was a bad interaction, whether there was a positive interaction, whether what was the outcome of that. I think this way that it helps like the knowledge transfer, like whenever this year's committee is going to go, but also it creates a strategy helps in creating a strategy for logistics and decision making, to ensure there's always a fallback plan. And then I think specifically as well for the external position, it's Yeah, also to ensure that to document, and it's also with internal, it's not specific to external. But feedback on VPs and like how they saw the year, how they saw interactions with different, maybe it's different strategies, different kind of issues, and what the outcomes of them were. And then uh, the last 2 points would be like increased partnership with Islamic organizations, specifically high school MSAs. Partnering up with events, mentorship events, which will also increase the community presence of the MSA. And then further along those tangible relationships with Islamic organization speakers, not limited to Ottawa. So we have greater exposure in the Eastern Ontario. And then ensure that these connections are continued and maintained. Then eventually is my point about knowledge gap, which is specific to in-council. Collect all the past resources as much as possible. Organize training with the assistance of past MSA members or community leaders or VPs or execs or presidents. And then formulating a series of virtual learning modules, which could be to build a familiarity with past MSA operations. I think this also this helps specifically for people who get into the MSA to ensure like how the MSA works, how it changes, how there's diversity within, to ensure that they have the knowledge base for success. And then finally, I want to adapt the mentorship program. We already have one, and it takes over our chaplaincy services that we have. But I think either that program specifically or something else, to kind of specifically for individuals interested in joining the MSA or newly joining the MSA, and like pairing them up with someone who even maybe left the MSA regardless, but the which could aid in promoting inclusion, understanding the way the MSA works, and also helps ensure that they feel their opinions are heard and that they maintain accountability.
There's questions online.
Anyone have a question?
Great platform, looks like both of you had some prepared. I have a question pretty quickly. So I'll start off with another. We talked about wanting to outline how to work with organizations. And I think we kind of already have that question. So I'd like to know more about how you want to outline. Specifically, if you want to work with an organization, what would be different? Like in terms, which is can be like knowing the why, the benefits, and I think this is something that I like. So what we expand it out with all the time. But what is something you I guess? Something we'd like to add to outline of the question.
I suppose in like improving it so that it's more comprehensive. I know the issue that occurred this year was disagreements with why you would let one organization and not another one. And so it's really improving those guidelines and like I just thoroughly reviewing it. Annually, I'm not sure if that's like if that's already like I think annually review it, but like just to ensure one thing.
We talked about finances, right? Transparency regarding MSA finances. I believe there's more of a finance committee or up to the finance. Why would you want as an external VP to be showing other departments of
No, it's, I think it's a misunderstanding of what I exactly meant. I think what I meant was, it is definitely a plan. It's not a kind of role that I'm supposed to take on. But I think, I must say, especially the finance and the external committee, they work in person, they work together. So, especially in terms of external organizations, any kind of action taken by the MSA, like increased or decreased transparency, has an effect on the external relations compound. So that is within my jurisdiction. So that's what I meant. That talk like, and a lot of the points that I mentioned were like seeming lines where it's not a sole effort. by no means, but it's a point to be brought up with the future external finance committee, and definitely there is deficits of having too much exposure. You know, definitely that's something to be talked about with the future finance committee. And my point was just that it does have deficits when we're not not completely, but we're not transparent of where exactly the funds go for, where exactly it's being used. That has definitely. That's all of it.
So I heard mashallah, you're very involved in other organizations, I have a lot of experience. And, that's something very promising, I think. Other than the external. The question here is, since you're involved in many other organizations, how will you ensure that you're standing about MSA values? You're not done in any possible conflict of interest.
Question. I think first and foremost, following the MSA values are also following Islamic values, and following fairness and the first and foremost is my priority, and that's how I kind of manage things.
We talked a lot about like humanitarian and social government, moving forward to I haven't talked to you, I haven't heard you talk regarding community involvement. Specifically in external, then depending on the community is usually that we're going to do.
Yeah, wasn't specifically mentioned on my platform, but I remember there were two positions. Director of Public Relations and the other one was kind of like a spokesperson that was within the external. I think trying to bring those positions back, because because I feel like, especially when it gets towards IW time, there's the president, the VP external, and the coordinator, they have a lot more weightage on their shoulders of showing they have training and stuff along the lines of that. So I think bringing back those specific positions is my kind of engagement. So at least that kind of external, that kind of burden that falls on these other positions are kind of taken off by these positions in external. And I think the reason that external is well, at least the committee is kind of that sense is because external is a lot of things, but there isn't you can kind of do anything, and I feel like sometimes having specific positions that's already existed and kind of outlining them and showing advertising the importance of them is important.
Now, the master of also has the way involvement. So we take external may sometimes promote to be on that page. How will you keep yourself accountable and maybe very involved others?
Something I mentioned in my platform was delegating clear role, down your roles early on in the semester, and also building that foundation to begin with. So the both financial advocacy plan and staff coordinator, public relations, and business role, and failing them. But to ensure that those are in place early on and to divide those tasks equitably early on, will help to share the workload in one way.
And I think everything said, but as well, I think having accountability that is within the execs or with the channel or with the upcoming weekly channel or with the president or with at least past members who are no longer execs, like who have definite amount of experience, so that they understand. Sure, accountability. So,
Anyone have any questions? We have some question from online.
Okay. So the first one is, one second. Okay, so the first one is everyone has their own opinion and level of what's acceptable in terms of working with certain organizations. So how will you decide what is acceptable and what isn't? So you guys both talked about it, but maybe concrete examples of how you actually make those decisions when you receive a proposal from an organization. Maybe Miriam first.
Since once again, just like going through that document, the guidelines for what has already been discussed to be accepted, but I'm saying some kind of collaboration. Also like really thinking about whether that organization aligns with some values and stand ground and so on, and their values and mission of the MSA.
yeah, so I think it depends on the event. It depends. Yeah, it really depends on what the event is. Like if it's partnering up with an organization that's we're helping like with like food or like something like that to raise charity for something for a unified cause. I think in those specific circumstances it might be kind of better to not look entirely at or definitely look at their values, but to kind of weigh out like what's the benefit and the harm, because at the same time the insurance is supposed to like raise public exposure, but definitely with stuff like if there's like a moral issue or an ethical or social issue that's being discussed, regardless of like whether it's for Muslim students or something along the lines, to ensure that, as Mariam mentioned, is to go back to the document to ensure that it's kind of along the same lines and the same values that PNSA holds. And also, I would say that to talk to people, I think like Shura is part of our Islamic values of decision making. So I think talking to people, discussing, and ensuring that we at least talk to 2 or 3 people that I consider to have the best interest of the MSA and see how it goes, along with of course our board of the
The next question is, as VPE, it's important to be charismatic as well as extroverted to a certain extent, as you're supposed to be networking and creating new relationships for the MSA. So how do you feel you can best do this with your personal qualities, and how can you ensure that any current MSA relationships won't become worse, and how can you create and build new relationships? Hey, Mahir first.
I think we all have, I think, different attributes. But I think for me personally, I always kind of, whenever there's like-minded people, in Islam I usually find it much easier time being extroverted. And specifically with this, I think there's that to understand that the responsibility is mine. Like if regardless of whether they feel like, oh, okay, I don't want to be as extroverted or talkative or whatever the case is, and to talk to people and build connections. And I took this responsibility, and that thus that I should the characteristics that kind of have to be implemented. Ensuring that these, that's to have a backlist of people, like to also be connected with different scholars and different, people that that it doesn't always require that much effort to have the second or the third interaction, and just requires a lot more effort the first.
I agree that being a good spokesperson and being at one is very, very important to the role. Me personally, I've been involved in several organizations, both in school and out of school for a long time. I think that that's really helped with me personally being able to talk and build relationships with those, like, all kinds of people. Actually, I was a development screener, so I worked in multiple and I've worked in different settings like that. And as for maintaining those relationships, I think it's very important to also have the coordinator roles. Actually, doesn't make sense, but like the coordinator roles are very important to simply maintain these relationships, to keep in touch and keep in contact with these organizations and people.
There's one more. Oh, you can go.
You guys mentioned, if you were involved with other organizations, also managed to be your students, also the realistic students. How are you gonna manage your time honestly and speaking of anything? Because you does require a lot of everything.
So, well, first and foremost, I'm going to the second year, so the workload isn't as tough as it is in my third, fourth year and beyond. I'm also an organized person to begin with. The girls will know here that I actually am very, very scheduled, like not scheduled, but I keep my stuff very organized and schedule my week and all that. And also, just appointing coordinators to share that workload, as well as just, I think, one thing that I plan to do is what the GP is to block off time, just dedicated to responding to proposals, responding to inquiries, responding to messages and all that.
For me personally, I'm an upper levels student, but I don't have a lot of course. I just have one course, like each semester, and then whatever else I might want to take the rest of it's from. So I don't have that many obligations really. I feel also being on campus will help a lot with the external relations, specifically when discussing with other departments within Carlton. I think the second point is that is trying to, this would be like with the internal, is that like I think everyone needs a certain grade of accountability. Definitely BPEs need lesser than current council members, but I think to ensure that maybe even like on a quarterly basis, like for a couple of months, to ensure that we're meeting meeting the kind of objectives that I put forth, and maybe with even other council members, because just because I would be like in a leadership position does not mean that I am without I have my decision or whatever the case is the best decision. So,
when you're making decisions, how do you make sure it does not become a policy or legislation? What do people to advise for when making that subject for the
So it depends on the decision, but I think for I would say quite more external aspects of the kind of role, and specifically which are more kind of discreet or kind of like secretive in nature, in a sense, things that can't be shared with everyone. I think it's important to talk to people who already have the position or who are in the MSA, who had a leadership role but don't have the position. I think, and also of course like with the current VPs, the president.
The thing I was gonna ask is, you sometimes will have to make decisions on their own. How do you make sure you make the right decision without burdening the decision on the other reports?
Oh, okay. Well, I think that could like, is that, MSA doesn't exist with just within the MSA. Is that there's a lot of people that's still quite involved, but they don't participate in the MSA previous MSA events. And of course, depending on the information, you can't completely share it. But I think sometimes, but it's always still good to have Shura as much as possible, and that like to maybe say like, kind of to like Ahmed, for example, I'll be like, hey, what do you think about partnering up with us? Something like that, right? And just see what they say. But then at the same time, yeah, I think a lot of decisions are like spot on, and that you have to make this decision, and that I make it to my best ability, and with kind of the ethics that I know that the NSA operates on. But yeah, but as well as everything I mentioned before.
I think being self-reliable is a very important characteristic of this role. And just with my own experiences, I think just thinking like having to make those decisions spot on is very important characteristic for the role. And it's something that I personally have experienced with, like in my politics classes, where I have to make a decision very spot on about what like side I am on by discussion. So I think I personally am able to make a decision, and I obviously do the best of my abilities.
Okay, I have a question. So as VP External, you're kind of representing the MSA at an organizational level, and you'll be invited to a lot of events and meetings with imams, with the leaders of organizations, and these are like 50, 60-year-old men for the most part. So, and you're at that level with them where you have to represent the MSA. And sometimes you will receive requests from these elders that you're supposed to respect. And you'll receive requests from them that the MSA cannot fulfill, whether it's because it's just the timing that doesn't work, or you don't have the money to spend on this event, or simply it just doesn't fall in the scope of the MSA and its purpose and what it's trying to achieve, even if you still respect that community member. So my question is, when you're at that level with them and you respect them and you have to kind of, again, be respectful, how do you say no to them, but still maintain a good relationship with them so that you can continue working with them on things that actually will benefit Carleton students?
So I think like really anyone else, you ask for proposal first. These people you wanna, I guess it's not the most respectful. Perhaps not that way. I think just really maybe ensuring that when being friendly, but also pushing about the MSA, and so that perhaps we can maybe provide an alternative option, and if that doesn't work, then just letting them know like this doesn't work for us right now, but we'd be open to collaborating in the future.
I agree with her, Mariam, especially because the focal point of the MSA is the community itself, right? So is the Carleton community of Muslim students. So I think this is going to happen a lot. So I think it's important to know that the MSA can't serve everyone. We are all volunteers. I kind of try to explain that, and I feel like sometimes when like you're trying to explain that we're organization, that we're run by students, we're run by so people who are don't have a lot of money, we just try to give as much as time as they can, try to make it as personal as they can, and I think that way helps. Ensuring that just I'm trying to remember that so that when there is a free time or an event that we actually like go back and be like, hey, we mentioned this before, we still want to do something.
Any more questions?
Online. Okay. There's another one online. It says exam accommodations for iftar, prayers, and Eid have been an issue and fight with Carleton. How do you plan to convey the importance of these accommodations to Carleton to improve the student experience?
I think what I've always thought of is like, we should have a survey. And like, we have a survey already, but I feel like we don't advertise it. You know, we have these surveys that we do is like how many people need on accommodations and stuff, but we, sometimes we just put it on a poster and then who sees the poster, I don't see posters. So I think there's sometimes like, having and what I mentioned before, like having those MSA representatives and first year residents. And like, make sure they speak about these topics if someone takes that role. And like is to I feel like a certain amount is also like just pressing them like with SEO and with all these services continually. And also I feel what I've thought about is that to get the weightage of professors, especially people who are tenure and full professors, I feel like they have a lot of weight with these kind of stuff. And a lot of if you want for example, I know like Dr. Kim Holland, she's like maybe kind of dean of science. And so like stuff like that, like getting going through these but different avenues that we haven't taken already to kind of like give even more pressure to these departments.
So those are very important issues. I listen to this like in the space. However, as far as I'm aware, any dealings with public use administration is something that is specific to the president's responsibilities. So I think it's for the self, it's something I think for the most part it is implemented responsibility for these things.
I actually have one more. Is it okay? Okay. I have one more question. So Miriam, especially, you talked about this, but I think Mahari touched on it as well. You both talked about the importance of strengthening the MSA's relationship with mosques and like charities and things like that. And that's a great goal, right? But my question is, what are practical, concrete steps? How do you actually strengthen the MSA's relationship with these organizations in terms of concrete step-by-step actions or just ideas maybe?
Top of my head, first of all, the measures coordinator, very important responsibility, and it's the thing that I will delegate early. As I felt it, I would delegate early on. And also, like, if there is any initiatives to begin with, to continue that contact, to follow up with any initiatives, to be being the first one to reach out if you have an idea or proposal, and also reaching, responding back in a timely manner.
I think yeah, I mentioned this my past platform before, but it was that like as Ryan said, like having those renewal connections, but also I think for example, like it could be like start on a lower scale. Sometimes I feel like we can do an event, but we can't. I don't know, we don't have the money for it, or we don't, maybe we can't give so much time. But maybe something that's completely run by them, but then we can kind of group of the committee can go and help out, and if there is like they do like I don't know, community cleanup or something like that. And I think like because I feel like sometimes the masjids maybe are hesitant at times to collaborate with us is because they don't see engagement within our like, oh, we're an organization, we're partnering up with them, but not a lot of us show up. So I feel like making sure that we do that.
Extending on to the masjid thing, so but BPE where the masjid coordinator do something with BPE, we usually find our best. Right? Sitting with specific, we cannot sit down with you and G because we are not like we don't have a proper mosque or anything. So that's where the barrier of communication comes in, where we can actually have contact with residents and sit down and meet with what's going on around the pocket. And when you're selecting people to be in contact with and masjids, who are you going to try to reach out to? Are you going to reach out to residents, board members, like representatives, and what's your plan to do that? Because, wait, because you can obviously just like be in contact with someone who works in an office, but that's really not enough. Right? So, yeah.
I think sometimes maybe contacting, sometimes it seems that contacting like the person would be the better idea, but maybe they have too many emails or whatever the case. So I think going on like a scale of that sense, like maybe a representative, but also it depends. Like if for example, if right now we have someone that we continually connect with, that we continually talk within the UOJ, or you whatever. It's we try to talk to them because that would be easier and more accessible. But also kind of try to make sure that like we said, like maybe after a week or two, if we haven't heard, do you have anything here? Do you kind of like could you respond back or like do you have any updates? And try sometimes like if they have kind of community partnerships or other mosques, right, which they have, then when members of those when the members of UNG comes to these masjids to ensure that we actively persuade whoever it is, maybe it's me, maybe it's masjid partner, whoever that is. But
I couldn't say off the top of my head, however, I think it's something to thoroughly research and look into before reaching out to whoever's president or president or board member. I think it's important to thoroughly research what is the who is the best person for the.
A follow-up question, like not a follow-up question, but like it's a question on the side. What is the problem? Let's say the year starts, you want to do a collaboration with some people. Who's like this? It doesn't have to be realistic. Who would you reach out to? Who would you want to collaborate with? Any organization inside of
I would do HCI. We haven't done. We haven't done one in HCI to go into in responsible. I remember we were first.
It's a sponsoring committee. I know they do a lot of some of their events. They're very involved in this model, but I think I'd like to get this in as well. Any more questions?
Perfect. Thank you, Maher and Mariam. Inshallah, we'll have like a short break for prayer. 15 minutes. If you guys could come at 1:35, that would be amazing. Inshallah, the next meeting will be virtual.
ازيك يا روحي عاملة ايه؟ I
Yeah, I'll just keep up.
Sorry. It's a super lovely, it's not like.
Oh my God.
Alhamdulillah, somehow. It's like last week. There's a lot at my blood pressure and stress level. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. This was actually one of the quietest weeks of my entire pregnancy. Okay. In the UK.
Then you're in the end. يعني بس هيكلمنا معاه استوعب الموضوع.
Salam alaikum.
How are you?
How are you?
Alaikum salam. How was Ramadan? What are you gonna do next year?
I don't know. Everyone's upset at me that I dropped out.
Huh?
Everyone's upset at me that I dropped
No,
out.
no. You know what? What's not upset are you? Sometimes you need to enjoy the moment. Yeah. You don't need more stress. It's your last year. Just enjoy. Be a student. People. Because being a student is very.
Well, I actually is being enough. I do the bare minimum. I get a hard time. And that's it. I don't.
They were all playing the places in London. And there was I didn't know. Yeah. Yeah, and if it wasn't for school, I feel like I would have taken out more things, but I'm still, I'm just pretty graduate. Huh? Why? Like,
PAs aren't being paid.
just here?
PAs and contract. They're like 30% of classes.
Yeah, I had a lab cancel, tutorial cancel, and a whole class.
I was at first, but you still have to do your work.
Yeah, like
I have 3 papers to write. Didn't change it.
I'm trying to like write this paper and I'm like, it's over. I don't I like there were so many things I was like, sure what to do. But process like honestly. You know what? They actually make you guys do the school work to just like to give the school more pressure. So, like, because like it's not fair. What are you gonna write like the paper about? Like the assignment as well? Like,
Well, you know, you have to do it because maybe the strike will end like the day before the deadline.
yeah.
So then it will still be due.
Not fun.
Yeah.
Not fun. Oh, I just want to be over. Oh my God. Look who's you. This year I had to convince myself so many times that I wasn't gonna drop out. No. No, I'm so done. About few weeks and we're done. No, I'm still years. Like, what, like, summer break, they will recharge us on and just come very good.
Why?
So underwhelming.
That's what's still overall. So what are we gonna do?
Are we gonna start? We need to.
The next time. Dave, I think you should do a time limit on it.
For question.
Do like, this 3 minute block.
3 minutes?
5 minutes. Block.
Okay,
Okay, I'm praying for you. So, I'm just saying, let's see, there's 2 hours left. How many? Right.
External one.
Yeah, because it's important. Okay.
Can you go back to your seat? Thank you.
Let's see, 5 minutes platform, 20 minutes plus. And if it's 2 candidates, 5 minutes platform, 15 minutes plus.
Okay, so the next candidate is the vice president services. So Joy, you can come.
Hi, assalamualaikum everyone. My name is Joy. I'm currently studying industrial design and I am running for VP services. So what I intend to do if elected, inshallah, will be to strive to uphold the needs of the Muslim community on campus. So I want to make it easy for students to practice their religion effectively, have access to academic resources, and if Allah wills, my focus will be on developing a welcoming and nurturing environment for all Muslims on campus and overseeing that the necessary support is provided for everybody. So I've kind of divided it into a few sections, starting with our religious programming. I will try to ensure that halakas are back to a weekly schedule. What I saw this year was that was something that people really enjoyed. Another thing is to have at least like one sheikh or ustad as a teacher that people can go to and that a lot of people on campus know in case they have questions or religious knowledge that they want to seek, that they have someone on campus to be able to reach out to. Collaborate with local mosque, with obviously external, to help host perhaps classes and seminars on campus for people who want to take their studies more further, inshallah. And also establish a way for students to have knowledge of the basics of Islam, like Aqidah, fiqh, Sharia, like having an ustad or maybe books on campus that they may be able to take their knowledge in more in depth. Another thing that I will be overseeing is spiritual support. So seeing that the brothers and sisters circle are running very effectively and smoothly. Alhamdulillah, this year we were able to start that program in person again. And it was a really good outcome. A lot of the sisters, alhamdulillah, were able to get closer to their deen. And I heard good reports from the brothers as well. So making sure that they have this kind of things to organize a sense of community within the MSA as well. Another thing for spiritual support is what I've seen this year. Alhamdulillah, we've seen a surge of reverts who have come to Islam, especially in this semester and the last alone. One thing that I really wanted to implement next year, inshallah, is making sure that these people have the support that they need. In the brother side, maybe some types of groups, and in the sister side as well, ensuring that, you know, they feel connected to the dean, they're not shy to practice on campus, and that they have access to the support that they might need. For the masala, maintaining the cleanliness of the masala is a big issue. So what I would do is probably delegate a literal cleaning team within services, or people who want to volunteer outside of services, just that we organize that. Ensuring that the masala is a safe place for all Muslims, and that people feel welcome to come pray no matter what way they practice Islam. It's just a place of ibadah. It's not specifically catered to a certain group of Muslims. And one thing that I saw for the masala is people really liked having like Islamic books, not just the Quran, but like books about hadith and seerah and tafsir and stuff like that. So inshallah, maybe connecting with masjids to get these types of books so that people could read in the masala and feel more comfortable in order to seek more knowledge. Jummah prayer would be to delegate obviously a coordinator for this and ensure that everything is running smoothly, that the mats are cleaned on a regular basis. So inshallah, a little bit more often, like reading week during breaks and beginning and end of summer, inshallah. Also get a coordinator to manage khatibs and also khatib training. Alhamdulillah, we've seen like a lot of brothers giving more khutbahs this year, and that's something that I want to see more often next year, inshallah. So having these training events or training sessions will be able to build the confidence in the brothers to, you know, give more khutbahs and, you know, not be shy to share in front of everybody, inshallah. As for special events, have members of the team planning different events. So I would just be kind of overseeing that all the members of my team might be able to have some hands-on experience with different events going on. So that's something I would really like to delegate, like have everybody have that type of opportunity for leadership and hands-on experience. Obviously listening to the request of the students on campus to make sure that their needs are being met, because as services, all we do is just make life easier for them. So just really making sure that everybody gets what they need. As for Ramadan, obviously offering Tarawih prayers. Alhamdulillah, you know, it's going very well this year, but maybe if we could plan it a little bit early, we could get more of a structured type of thing, but this is going well, alhamdulillah. If our planning, obviously booking off the atrium far in advance to make sure that we have our needs being met and that we have enough donors and food, etc. Probably organizing halaqah during the week, during Ramadan. So that was something we wanted to go through this year, but unfortunately, like with time and like Ramadan, just a very busy time of year, it wasn't able to go through, qadarullah. But inshallah, if we plan earlier next year, we can have that going on. And I think that would be something that people would really appreciate on campus. And ensuring with obviously external that Sohar for residents is accommodated for. Engagement, so ensuring that everybody on campus feels like they have a voice in the type of services that we have to offer. Welcoming any suggestions for events that people want to have, like to see on campus. Trying to get around the masala like a board that actually has the events posted, and maybe activating the TV again is a big issue because a lot of people like miss the events, they don't know what's happening. It's literally just word of mouth. So ensuring that around the masala we also have a poster for the events is a big issue. Creating a safe environment for everyone, and also reestablishing kind of like reminders on campus, like making that the norm. Just that people check in on each other, not just for like services aspects, but also like for the remembrance of Allah, simply just to make sure that everybody's doing well. I think that's a big issue, to make sure that the community is very strong and active. As for my team, I would also be delegating coordinator roles for everybody, actually. People who are a lot more active this year, inshallah, I'll try to get them to organize certain events or be coordinators of different aspects of our services that we offer. So making sure that everybody feels like they're engaging in some type of way. Also for team bonding, I think alhamdulillah services, we have a really great committee. Just making sure that people feel welcomed and that people feel like they can also take on the tasks that I've offered them. So having meetings that are not just like, obviously like services related, that's important, but having meetings where people can talk about their stresses, like just having food and bonding time, talking about the remembrance of Allah. I think that's a good thing for renewing our intentions as a team and making sure that we're good, because everybody's offering services to other people and making sure that they're okay. So just making sure that my team is okay is going to be one of my biggest priorities. And overseeing that everybody has the energy to take on the tasks that I've delegated them. If they need support, that seeing that someone else on the team can support them. You know, I want to create an open space that people feel like they can, you know, share their needs and wants and desires. Thank you.
Questions?
First, I found start with that what for taking on the candidacy. We research it's a handful, I'll be honest. There's a lot of things that you are in charge of. And important things that you're in charge of. So that belongs like taking that on. A question I have is how you can address the needs of the community through this kind of program.
So definitely, alhamdulillah, this year I saw that a lot of our programmings, like for example, the sister circle and the brother circle, those are programs that really allowed people on campus to talk about their problems and talk about their needs and their wants and what they expected from campus, as well as the type of spiritual support that they needed. So making sure that these events are, these types of groups are going on, and obviously hearing feedback from them. Having a coordinator from the brother side who is obviously asking the people what's going on and making sure that the sisters are engaged and feel free to communicate would be a good way to make sure that everybody's needs are being met.
Anyone have a question? Okay, better. So, I want to thank you as well for Randy. I just wanted to ask, like, do you know about certain groups who actually don't feel welcome, or like when you, like, because like when we talk about trying to make everybody feel welcome, then that kind of assumes that there are people that don't feel welcome. I mean, so like I'm just wondering, like, who are those people and how could you like actually include them?
Well, I'm not gonna like mention names, but a lot of other sects of Islam, people who practice a little bit differently than Sunni Islam. That's an issue that I've kind of heard this year, that people have like said certain things or made them feel like they can't practice openly. So ensuring that, you know, everybody has those accommodation, that if I see someone like in that type of sect, like using these different ways of prayer, just assuring that they feel comfortable, you know, saying salam to them, acknowledging that yes, they are Muslim, maybe we have differences, but essentially we still believe la ilaha illallah, so it doesn't really matter. Just making sure that they all feel safe. Yeah, just yeah.
Can you hear me from here?
Yeah.
I guess I'm wondering what you plan to do in terms of balancing out, you know, scholars and speakers.
Yeah.
This is a big gap, and over the years we've asked for it more, and over the years it's gotten better. But what do you plan to do that's different from this?
One thing I want to do is, obviously we have smaller circles with like female studs, but I think a big thing would be delegating major events to having female speakers, because I feel like a common theme is like with the major events going on, we usually go towards like a sheikh or like, you know, a male speaker. So if we have any of these major events, maybe at least once a month, we have a female speaker. If, for example, there's 2 major events during that month, at least one of them is a female speaker, and like actually making sure that it's a good balance, inshallah.
I have actually a question. So in MSA, there is kind of two type of events, like a social events and Islamic events. And the number of attending that comes to show like social events are, I would say, much higher than the one that comes to the Islamic event. What would you do like to increase the number of attending to the Islamic program?
Well, what I saw this year, especially like towards like the winter semester, when we had halaqas like every week, even though it started off small, by the time like we actually had a steady, consistent schedule, the room was packed. Like there was a lot of people coming to these Islamic events. So I think the real issue is having consistency in these events to make sure that people know like, okay, like this day is the day for an Islamic event. And just obviously word of mouth, making people feel more welcome, advertising it better, making it seem fun and engaging is also a big issue. But I think the main aspect is consistency in the scheduling of it to make sure that we have like a consistent population of people who come to school.
I want to say also Jazakallah khair for running. As a previous VP services, it's really exciting to see like your ideas and what you have to offer. My question is, sometimes when we organize certain halaqas or lectures, people might have the impression that it's only for like Muslims who are practicing at a very certain level, and maybe Muslims who want to attend or participate, but maybe are struggling a little bit with their faith, feel a little bit alienated and don't feel like they can show up. So my question is, how do you cater your halaqas or your Islamic programs so that, the practicing Muslims, will learn and benefit, but then also those who want to become better and maybe are just struggling a little bit can also feel comfortable attending and benefit as well.
For this, I would use the example of the one halaqa that I did organize with Ustad Timius there. Alhamdulillah, it was very successful. A lot of people like thought, because it's in Ustad and she's teaching like the study of the Quran, and like it's for people who are more advanced in their studies. But I think it's the way we kind of pitch it to the people and that they like to advertise it as well as a big factor. I remember like saying for my when I was like advertising it, I was telling people that it's not just for the study of the Quran, but it's like for people who want to understand how to study the Quran. So that gives it gives the door for people who already like do the study to how to study it more efficiently, and for beginners who want to learn it essentially. Because like at the end of the event, alhamdulillah, like I got a lot of reviews from sisters who weren't that practicing, that after hearing that, like they started taking the study of the Quran more seriously. So I think a big issue is like how we actually pitch these events out, because we're always gonna have like ustads who are at different levels of practices to teach different things, but making sure that we make it seem like something that anybody at any stage of their journey can come to and benefit from. So yeah, just making sure that it's an open type of advertising, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for taking this role. I'm really excited to see what you do show up. I'm just wondering, you talked a lot about team building and making sure everyone in the team is okay. That's great. But how will you make sure you're okay? How will you take care of yourself and also take care of the responsibilities that are out? Because sometimes what can happen is that we feel that this is only on us. And like if like I have an assignment that is killing me and like I can't do that thing, then before ever see your coming. But that's not gonna happen. So how can you ensure that you're not putting too much on yourself, but you're also ensuring that everything is well balanced?
I think a big thing that I would do to make it easier on myself is delegating like more coordinator roles. Because I see a lot of potential in the committee. Like anybody could have taken on my role. Honestly, I feel like all of them are very like capable people. So inshallah, delegating like more coordinator roles for everybody would kind of take a load off my back. I would just kind of be overseeing that everything is run smoothly. But yeah, I think a big thing that I will definitely do is making sure that, you know, everybody feels like they had the opportunity to have some type of role of leadership, and I'm just kind of guiding them through whatever they're planning or whatever they're doing, inshallah. That really help, yeah.
This is my map. How do you, so the MSA is sort of in charge of multiple career spaces. Maybe 2, 3 career spaces at this point. So, and there's multiple other career spaces which are handled by university departments. So how do you plan on managing all those multiple career spaces that we have and making sure that everything is how it gets up to the standard that we have set with it?
I could make sure that like people are obviously in my committee are sending me reviews on the states of these musallas. That's something that we already do, alhamdulillah. So I think just like ensuring that, you know, we go visit these places, actually pray in them and like understand the feel of it. And if there are issues that need to be resolved, then obviously taking the action needed to like make sure that it's like up to par as to what our standards are. So I would say like just checking in on it frequently and like trying to like change whatever needs to be changed, inshallah.
Okay, I have 2 questions, so I'll ask you one. So you mentioned groups that didn't feel as included or don't feel welcome in MSA spaces. So some of these are like sometimes it's people who are just kind of curious, or you know, they haven't been practicing and they want to start, but you know, we don't want to get like, we don't want to be thrown to the end. So I want to actually say there's been requests to diversify the health topics, for example, or to extend it, or to like, you know, sometimes even segregating. What, like, would you do the same thing that you did this year? Would you think differently?
I think for this year, I would just kind of build on what we already have. I do like the structure we had this year, but I definitely do want to, as you mentioned, add more things that are more catered to specific types of groups. Like as I mentioned, for example, like reverts or people who want to learn about Islam. So alhamdulillah, like, you know, stuff like IW are obviously very useful, but maybe having like these small events that we can have like once a month or like once every 2 months or like once a semester even would be like a great way of like making it seem like, you know, it's not just for Muslims. Like if you want to learn about Islam, like literally if you just have questions, like you can come and understand, and like this is a place for you to ask your questions and it's open. So inshallah, like maybe we can plan an event like that. Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Yeah. I mean,
So I think
what do you say?
that way have a big platform. There's no question regarding. So some of the communities this year, they had an issue with, say there was an event from that specific community, we'll call it, oh, so the service over that. And we're doing this, or you'll find that the people in the same committee, they group together against other community members. What are you gonna do to prevent that? And we see that as a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Alhamdulillah, I think this year we've grown as like an MSA, especially like within the exec, there are people who are in more roles of leadership. I say like collaborating with other committees is a great way of like ensuring, first of all, like the success of an event in the first place. So not making everything, you know, cater to just services. Yes, although we do a lot on campus, but for example, if this is an event where I feel like people could have a little more fun, you know, be more outgoing, I would obviously like kind of collaborate with SL and make it more of an SL and services event, or something catered to like just Muslims, maybe SL services and internal event. So I think, yeah, a big issue would be making most of our events in collaboration with maybe another exec who could probably help us. or, delegate some of their volunteers to help us as well. Because there's only so much we can do in the first place, so yeah, that'd be a good thing.
Jazakallah khair. So the next committee that we have is student life. My favorite. So we have two candidates for student life, Yumna Al-Halawani and Ruqayya Ahmed. Unfortunately, Yumna, she was not able to make it today, but you could find her platform in Discord, like in the message that I sent you in the Discord. And also you could find her platform on the website of MSA. So I will ask Ruqayya to come and present her platform to all of you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. So, my name is Ruqayya. I'm currently in my, louder, okay. I'm in, sorry. I'm a little bit. I'm currently in my second year, studying social work and law. So next year I'll be in third year. And I am running for BPS Student Life. Some of my platform is based mostly on just ensuring that we continue making these social spaces for Muslims on campus to meet one another and to grow their relationships. And to make sure that we're doing that by following obviously the values of the MSA and all of our Islamic values. And I believe that it's very important, like that sort of the programming SL, because people come to university sometimes feel unsure of how they're going to fit in or if they're going to make friends. And so for us to create the space for them to meet others and to have a social life is very important. So some of my platform ideas do build off of what I saw this year. So firstly, continuing doing feedback forums after events. It gives us a chance to constantly grow and to do better because we never know what's best. So it's important to take feedback from what others say, but also in advance. So in the planning stages or before we start planning, to send out forms to the Discord, for example, or on Instagram to let people submit their ideas for events. That's not to say that we'll do everything that people say, because some people want crazy things that we can't do. But just so that we do give people an opportunity to have their input from the beginning and not once we've already sort of made a calendar of what we want to do for that year. Yes, that's my first point. And then my second point is that when planning bigger special events or larger mixed events between brothers and sisters, to have input from to have a brother and a sister coordinator planning that event specifically. Just because I found that this year is an event was planned by a sister, there'd be more engagement from the sisters. If it was planned by a brother, there'd be more engagement from that side. And so to avoid that struggle, then from the beginning to be more proactive, to have both, so that we have both inputs and they can speak for that side sort of from a general perspective. Yes, that's that. And then the other thing with the SL committee is to have more team bonding at the beginning. So that way, people, if everyone in the community knows each other, they'll be able to support each other better throughout the year, throughout the events. And just feel more like it's a team and not that it's just the two people who are on that event, it's just their job. So that way they can feel supported by everyone. And to feel supported by everyone, they have to know everyone's names and they have to know who they are to be able to feel supported. So yeah, to continue off of that, to continue having coordinators for special events and for student well-being, but also to have coordinators for recurring events, for the socials, that if we have the same thing constantly, for example, the study sessions, to have a coordinator for that. My next point is to continue working on inter-committee events. So this year we did have the Halacha socials. They worked out way better in the first semester just because of like timing and things like that. But the idea of it is something that I really think we should continue because it gives people a chance to learn something, but also to have the opportunity to socialize and hang out with their friends and meet more people. So continue the inter-committee events, but also to work on collaborations with UMSA. We did the ski trip with them, and we also did the sleepovers. Although sometimes it doesn't work out the best, it is like important to have that connection with another university, because at the end of the day, we all live in the same city, and having those connections with people who don't all go to Carleton will be beneficial for the people that attend those events in the future. Because you never know, like down the road, you'll like meet someone that went to that university, and that way you already know each other. So that's why I think it's important, even though it might be difficult. I think it's a hurdle we can continue working on. Also, my next point is event promotions. So to work with comms directly, obviously, but to do it in advance. That is another thing that I noticed we struggled with a bit this year, was just like we were promoting things too late, and it doesn't give people enough time to like book off work or like work on the schedule. And then like people like complain about it. So to promote events earlier, but in the sense of promotion, to not only have posters. So I think that we should like make short form videos so that way people feel more engaged, because seeing the same poster like 5 times on Instagram doesn't really like engage people. So if there's like a promotional scare or like a reel or something that we can make in advance of the event to like create hype around it, people would feel more like interested and more inclined to actually show up than like for us to be scrambling at the end, like we need people to sign up and things like that. Yeah. So some of my event ideas right now are just to do more brothers events, because this year we do not have a lot of like brothers only events, just because of timing and other factors. But I know that the sisters had a lot of like sisters only events, so just so that it's like people from both sides. And then another idea is to have a one-on-one like flash week, not only in September, but also in the winter term, because there are a lot of students who like take gap semester or like exchange students who start in the winter, just so that they have that chance to also like get to know who the VPs are and who the people are in MSA, so they have that opportunity in both semesters. And then to also do like recurring events, like sporting event or like intramurals, like because I know some people they don't feel comfortable, like especially sisters, they don't feel comfortable joining like the school ones, or yeah, and then also like to bring back some events that used to happen, like Olympics, like Sisters Olympics, Brothers Olympics, but also to create opportunities for people to give back to the community, which would be more of like a collab with like other external community, so volunteer opportunities, so that we can like, for example, one thing I have written down is to like collab with ICC to do their like Saturday like meal programs. So like one day we could be like this, we could go and make the packages and hand them out, so that people feel that while they also have the chance to like meet people and have that social aspect, it can be beneficial for them and they can give back to the community. So yeah, that's all I have.
Kind of on at the beginning. So how can you make sure or ensure that the events that student life hold are welcoming to both brothers and sisters, and they also implement all of the guidelines and values that we try to aim and follow, and how can we make sure that while we are still within those guidelines, that the environment is still welcoming and no one feels like they don't feel comfortable coming. So how can we make sure that everyone is welcome?
So the first part of like making sure that both brothers and sisters feel welcome, that would happen more towards like from the planning. So if like it's a mixed event, then to have like what I mentioned before, to have a brother and a sister planning it, so that way like that person, like if they're advertising, then they know more about like the event, and then they can spread the word to like the brother community, or the sister can spread the word to like the sister community, so that way they know the event is for both like, groups. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
How do you make sure that it's welcome, the environment is welcome, but also welcoming in the sense that no one feels uncomfortable, but you're also following.
So, a way to make sure people know that is at the beginning of events to like constant, or not just at events, but to give like reminders to people that like this is not just for like, say, for example, this is not just for the sisters, not just for the brothers, this is for everyone. But to also ensure that we're following like Islamic guidelines. So like having the separation or things like that to make sure that no one feels uncomfortable like in that space. So don't make people sit beside each other. They don't want to sit beside each other in that sense.
There's like no taking really on, I don't, that's always a individual and it's individual. You have a very well thought out platform, so. But then when it comes to implementation, sometimes parts of it all the same. So how will you prioritize which events to do? And the, the type of planning that you use.
So, in that sense, I think it's important to schedule. I'm a scheduled person myself, but just for like, for everyone in the like committee to know, like at the beginning of the semester or like before the semester starts, we'll plan the events for that semester and then have like a calendar so that you have like deadlines for people to like reach. So for example, you have to have your like proposal for this time. You have to have a post event for this time. But oh wait, I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the question? I forgot the second part.
Sure, so how would you prioritize the events and then how will you plan them?
Okay, so for prioritizing the events is like, for example, if it's something that's already happened multiple times, let's say for example, the first, like in the summer, in the fall term, and then like the idea comes back in the second term, but if there was not like proper, like enough engagement, then like I would explain to them, listen, that, like we had this event already and we didn't have the best engagement, so maybe it's best that we like think of another idea, or like don't to like just not discourage the person that the idea is bad, but just explain to them like, oh, maybe we already had this event multiple times, it didn't work out, or we should try something different, but in a way that's like respectful.
So this year, as I said, we have a lot of wellness events. And I think the biggest obstacle, like probably coach, is trying to come up with events that probably like obviously like the wellness events here can do so much. So what is the strategy to kind of come up or brainstorm with events that projects will actually like, or like how to draw them into events, because this is what people should have.
So to get the events that the village really like, we could maybe like do a separate form, sorry, for brothers to like fill out. If they don't fill out like the general form that we send out for like event ideas, we could send them specifically to them so that we can get their input directly. And then from that, like if we could also put like options for them to vote, like which event would you like to see this semester or this month? So that way, whichever one gets the most, like hopefully people are actually voting because they want to come, they want to do it. Yeah, it's fine.
Jazakallah khair for running. My question is, sometimes you will hear ideas like, or sometimes people might talk about how SL, or because we're a Muslim student association, Muslim, so we focus on halaqas and Islamic stuff, quote unquote, and they might not see why SL might be important. So my question is, considering the values of the MSA and the overall goal of the MSA, why do you think SL is important? And it is, but I want you to answer why.
So I'll speak from personal experience first, that like I know there's a lot of people who, again, like they come to university not knowing where they fit in, and especially like for people, if you grew up here, they might feel, oh my gosh, sorry. They might have grown up here and felt like very uncomfortable in like the high school they went to, or they might have not had that Muslim community to help them grow in their deen, or like for them to like learn more about Islam. And so to that person, like I would explain to them that having Muslim friends and like meeting them is like key to like growing in your like religion for yourself. And that also, just because we're Muslim doesn't mean that we can't have fun. So just sort of like talking to that person and breaking that misconception down.
Pardon grocery students that come in, like international specifically. Many of them don't know that MSc exists. How are you trying to reach out to them and inform them of something like this?
That's a good question. I think that maybe we could start working more with like, I think there's like an international student office. Yeah, so I think, although I think that's out of the scope of SL, but like maybe whoever is external, like we could work together to like reach out to the international students office so that when students are coming, they're aware, like whatever, I don't know how it works exactly, but I know they probably have like some sort of orientation for them. So in that like place, they could explain, like they could just promote the MSA or like all of the clubs in general so that they're aware. But I know there's also the club expo in like the beginning of the school year. So we can make sure that we're there. And we'll be there in September. But that answers your question.
It goes back to engaging brothers. So even with good event ideas, the gap for this year was engaging the brothers themselves to stay active. And that, you know, and as a, there will always be the difficulty working with brothers in time. Not because the time is difficult, sometimes, you know, people are uncomfortable, sometimes, you know, you don't see them as often or the other events you want to talk to them. So what do you intend to do to kind of bridge that gap?
I'm not 100% sure, if I'm being honest, but I'll think about it. I don't have an answer for you right now, but I know it's an important thing that like we do need to work on, because it's important for them to also have like a space where they can like meet each other. I mean, if they don't want to come, I don't know like how much you can force someone to do something. But I do know that even if they don't show up to events, there's people who probably still want to like meet each other and create that brotherhood. I'm not 100% sure how to answer.
Like, what's going on with the same one? The other VP, who at once will happen sometimes. People within, and then also turn them down. Well, fast. Everyone's gonna be something. Someone's gonna be on the vision, someone's gonna be. And yeah, going for brothers here, say brothers, putting the effort. How are you gonna make sure about they're going to continue to stay in your committee as an active member? If they've already given input and are going to get accepted, what will you do in order to make them do it?
So I think from the like first part of like if someone has an idea, and like it's not something that like we can do, to like sort of explain to them in like a very respectful and like nice way, so that it doesn't get to the point of them not wanting to be in the committee anymore. That's sort of the first step, to be more proactive from like the beginning. Of if I'm telling them no, that I say like lots of reasonings, and I let them know if they have any other like ideas, that it doesn't mean they can't bring it to me, that it's still like a safe space for them, and like they can bring their ideas. Just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean that the next idea won't work. What was the second?
Will you be willing to go?
Yes, 100%. I think, yes, I mean, I don't know, like, this year wasn't 100% involved, like, how that went. But I do think it's important, like, they can plan their own events, like, if there's a brother coordinator, then I hope that that person will take on like a leadership position and like take the lead on actually making sure that what they're working on is gonna be like beneficial for the brothers and something that they want to do. So in that sense, I think it's also important to have a brother coordinator from the beginning so that they're like gonna take the lead on that sort of issue if it arises again.
I think what Todd and I are both asking is, in general, how do you engage members? Because, because there's so many events and events that want to play. Engaging your team members effectively, and making sure you're not doing all the work.
So I was a previous SL VP. And I believe that SL and social events can introduce a lot of like people on campus to MSA in general. But something that I found it very difficult when I was a VP is to find like a perfect time for people to attend and not overlap with other events that is happening in the university or in Ottawa in general. How would you like make sure that the events is like time is perfect?
I think in that sense, it's important to do research on what's happening within the community. And to be aware of things that are happening, especially like bigger like events that I know people will want to go to. So like for example, this year I noticed that like the UNSA would do like 2-day like lectures, and then we would also have an event on the same day. So then people would have to like choose, or like they would have to like go to both. So to like take time to like properly schedule, but at the end of the day, like sometimes you can't avoid it, but to maybe promote better than other events.
Any more questions?
Maybe you can tell us, I guess something that you learned this year and that you intend to implement next year. I think your platform covers that generally, but thank you for personally in terms of time management, in terms of.
So coming into SL, I wasn't really like fully aware of how everything works. I'll be completely honest. But I think the biggest thing I learned was in advance, everything in advance. Even if the event is like 2 weeks away, just plan in advance because you don't know what's gonna happen. Like you're gonna get caught up with like schoolwork and other things like that. So to take like whatever free time you have to like work on whatever you need to work on, or like have meetings with whoever you need to meet with, so that way when it gets closer to the event, you don't want to be like panicking like 2 days before because you know what's going on. So and although like you can't always control that, but you can try to the best of your abilities to do it in advance.
Thank you, Papaya. So the next committee that we have is communication. I would like to ask Maymuna to come present first, then Besant. And afterward, they will be sitting and we will be asking them a question. I would like to ask you guys if you could put your like platform within 5 minutes, because we're just running behind in time. Okay. So Maymuna, you can go ahead.
Hi, everybody. We will start from short and 3 points. Inshallah. I'll outline those first. My 3 points are interactiveness, accessibility, and Islamic content when it comes to our communications platforms. For CUMSA. By interactiveness, I mean how to engage with the student body, how to have like engaging, relatable content. Student body being our CUMSA, like our existing platform, but also in terms of the wider Carleton student population. So in terms of interactiveness, I want to be able to live stream more events. So have an average of 1 live stream event per week, whether that be choosing one particular halaqa, having that consistently live streamed, or alternating between different events. This means that students who have longer commutes or who aren't easily able to get into campus, weather issues, especially in winter semesters, can then have that opportunity to engage with that content without actually physically being on campus. Also more reels and short content. That's where the trend is right now. TikTok, Instagram reels, that's what people engage with more readily than they do with actual physical posts, with scrolling, etc. Having more reels and short content that can be related to events, but also Islamic content would be something that I think would be beneficial to have, and makes our presence more, gives us more of a stronger social media presence on people's feeds as they're scrolling through. I also like the idea of having consistent photography set up for MSA events. We do have an MSA camera, but in terms of having people come and take pictures, we don't have a consistent setup of photography at events. So we have an event, we take pictures, but they're not necessarily coordinated in the sense that we don't know who's taking pictures and where they're set up. I would like to have a consistent plan to be able to post from events, because that also makes our events more personable and draws people into how we plan things. I would also like to do a couple of small competitions and giveaways throughout the year, preferably with small Islamic businesses in Ottawa. That would boost their platforms, but also boost our platforms through having like community engagement and be more connected with Muslim business owners and stuff. This ties into Islamic content as well, because Islamic content basically meaning what we can bring to our social media stories to have like an everyday social media feed that becomes less about events that we're having, and more about just like what do we have that we can engage with students in the sense that we become more active. We already have a good Islamic social media presence, I would say, with our reminders weekly. And but I think that having Q&A sessions with Sheikh, so not necessarily live, but having kind of an open box for people to ask questions, and then those be responded to on social media, and those answers be there for people to see, as well as having more reflections on the Islamic impacts of our events. So after we have halaqa, students who want to be interviewed saying what they learned, having Sheikh say like what they've gained, like what they've seen at our events, would have more Islamic content, it would be better. Also student videos that can be submitted throughout the year. So reflections on ayahs, hadiths, whatever touches them necessarily, or any reflections that they have that could then be presented there, and also bring a level of interactiveness as well back from the students into our social media. And then in terms of accessibility, how we can be more accessible to the student body as a club. This means making our executives more approachable, as well as having council members become more approachable. So that would be having like interview videos when we try to have like an executive board, then introducing them through social media to have it kind of become somebody that's easier to relate to, and easier to approach with questions, and have a more open communication that way. As well as having the communications members themselves introduce themselves, obviously based off everybody's comfort. But if somebody's answering DMs on the CUMSA Instagram, I think it's important that you have a face to put to the name, or you know, like if you're asking somebody a question, it would be nice to know who that person is. So having communications themselves be more integrated into that process, and having ourselves be more introduced to that social media. aspect. Something that's less related to that is teamwork within other departments. So teamwork with the IW comms team as well, was something that I found really important this year. When working for this year, I'm gonna say comms, in IW, as well as with other departments and, keeping that all related and having closer ties there and more open communication between those departments as well as within communication.
Okay, is this volume okay in the back? Good, okay. Bismillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah. So my name is Basan. Maybe some of you don't know me. I am a first year global international student. I have been in communication this year as graphics coordinator. But things aren't quite that organized in comms, I would say, this year that I felt it was different from just general volunteers. So, starting off with that, I would say, my first point, if I am elected, inshallah, is to, first increase, coordinator positions in comms, as well as have them, strictly defined time. So, besides the whole comms team was a little bit smaller than preferable. I think it was also like everybody was doing kind of everything to some extent. So the first thing I plan to do, inshallah, is increase communication coordinator positions and have everyone knows what they're doing and where they are in the bigger picture of the whole community. The second is the second point is training graphics team members to improve their digital design skills. I would say even if they came in with some skills like getting used to the MSA guide, the brand guide, takes a bit of time. So I say like especially starting early on in the semester and having a concrete team that knows their role and they're confident in the role. Adding on to that is that it's very important to delegate, like everybody mentioned today. It's very important to delegate to coordinators and make sure that they delegate to their volunteers if they have volunteers working with them, so that nobody feels like they're overworked. I will share my platform for the sake of time, so there will be more details that you can check out online, but I will say the final point here is to engage communications and make sure that they are well included in the MSA as a whole and together. So having more in-person meetings, having more team building activities to make sure people work together, so that if somebody is having a little bit too much schoolwork, they can rely on someone else to help with their comms obligations. So.
So my question is, so not everybody uses like social media. Some people do actually look at posters like on campus and or like Discord or something. But I realized that there's like a lack of advertisement on those platforms. So like I think I was wondering like if that's something that you guys wanted to like invest in.
For me, I think that means also transferring the graphics that we make for social media over to in person. So posters, handouts, more things like that, especially around the Musalla as well. Because that's a place where people consistently go around all the Musallas. It's places where people consistently go, and being able to also transfer the graphics that I work hard on for social media. Being able to transfer those into in person as well, I think is important. And it spreads it more widely, it'd be less word of mouth. But also make it more available on campus. That's also for Discord. So using the graphics that we use for social media on Discord as well, and having more like strong advertising presence on Discord as well, because I am aware that not everything.
I also think a big part of it is last minute planning. So when everything is done last minute, we don't have time to print, we don't have time to share everywhere like, on our different social media. So big part of it is communicating with other VPs and making sure all the requests are received in a timely manner so that the graphics are high quality and they get printed and shared everywhere possible. On that note, I forgot to add that I think only VPs know this, but we have like a graphics request channel for other committees to submit requests for graphics. And I think there's quite a bit of improvements that could happen there. And inshallah, just making sure all the other communities know and plan with everyone else early on, so everything can be done in an appropriate time.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but very recently, the newsletter has been, got moved to under communications committee. And, like, I wanna know, like, are you guys gonna also use the newsletter to do some of these graphics, and like, how would you manage it, like, the time management? When would be the day that you guys would post it and like the graphics requesting on?
So I wasn't actually updated that I actually moved to comms. I was not updated. Yeah, I was there with the discussion that Usman wanted it to move from admin to comms, and that we needed to work on that. But yeah, definitely if it did move, then we do need an extra coordinator position, and having.
I'm sorry, okay, so there is only a coordinator right now. But like at the same time, like maybe that will change, like what are also your plans like in the future, you know?
Yeah, I think if it is under comms, then we will keep using that coordinator position. And work with having that coordinator work with the other coordinators to see when would be the best time to send out the newsletters. As well as like taking feedback from other VPs, and just doing our best to include whatever upcoming events. And I know it's not always possible, and there will be last minute events planned, so it's not always possible, but we can do our best. And it's not like it's our only method of communication, so people will see our stuff anyways as well.
Since I can only say that I only found out that it was moved from admin to comms about 30 seconds ago, that it is a full-time job to have a newsletter, and also to be able to maintain that quality. So we have to have a coordinating position, and we also probably want to have some people in comms working on a team to make sure that that happens in a timely manner. That's a quality newsletter, etc. In terms of that, I don't know how often you're posted again. I don't have a plan for that because I didn't know. But in terms of that, a coordinator and a team for the newsletter would be something that I think would be important, especially because for this new MSA body.
I would want to do. Personally, so I talked a lot about adding great initiatives, like a real story, live streams. I wanted to ask, other than the initiatives, what's your experience with ICHIP within the comms committee, and what problems do you see there first?
I work with the all year, so I do the captions and Instagram stories. So I worked closely with her on those, and she's doing it about advice throughout the year. What problems we're seeing? Personally, I would prefer to have more consistent meetings in person. I don't really know very many people on the comms committee. So that was something that I would implement more often, is more teamwork and more consistent meetings. And having everybody communicate on a more constant basis. In the sense that everybody has their job, but those jobs don't really overlap. In the sense that even if those jobs don't overlap, I believe it's important for everybody to kind of know each other and who they're communicating with. Like, that was a problem that I saw for this year. I can't really speak to graphics or anything else because my job was primarily Instagram. So I can't speak to what anybody else experienced for, but that was the main issue I had this year. But besides that was good.
The sun. You talked about how you need people in the comms here. How many people do you think would be a good, what's the approximate number that you would need for those different roles? And then there's another question, which is how will you keep consistent designs for each of them? So first, how many people do you think we need in the community to get things rolling properly?
Okay, so I would say, I think right now we have like posting coordinator, graphics coordinator, and with the newsletter coordinator. For the newsletter, we have at least 2 people, coordinator and somebody else working with them. Graphics, I would say there should be at least 3 from my experience. 2 people is not enough. Posting average 2, maybe 3 if there are people. So yeah, honestly, like minimum 6 in the whole committee, preferably 10, just to make everybody's work a little bit more manageable.
And the second question is how will we keep design consistent for the graphic designs?
Yeah, so you mean just graphics designs for different events, not for the same event?
Yeah, we go on Instagram, it's kind of a mess. It looks good like an individual thing,
Yeah.
but when we go and look at it, the whole picture, it's kind of looks.
Yeah. So I think big part of that was the graphics team was not communicating together. There was 2, maybe 3 people doing graphics, but it was like whoever, as requests come in, whoever has time, they do the graphics. So there was absolutely no communicating between the people to talk about the scheme or the style of graphics all over the semester for the year. So I think a big part of that is having the graphics coordinator delegate to their volunteers and have a consistent meeting with them, and even like have multiple people working on graphics to make sure that similar schemes are going across different events posted.
So, in current like student support, or being coordinator and student position, but one of the requirements for the positions. Resources and people share them, right? So, it's getting quite tricky because, nice, is that like, we all, like, even if I'm trying to share, and so there's no graphic design, well, just. I need to like request from, and since comms is so big, right, the whole, say, dependent, it's never goes through, it never gets shared, right? But it is just like a 1 second thing. So like, how are you going to make sure that, like, that problem isn't, based by the future student support, but also like, how are you going to make sure that the person gets the, if they need access, if they don't need access, then but if they do, we are given access, so we should have a content, how are you going to make sure that they, I mentioned before that, how are you going to make sure they can ethics and people, they don't do anything outside those.
Sorry, when you mean share resources, you mean like in our bio, like? entry?
And also it's like, just like, for example, I would see something on the different Python pages, like, Python minus or something, on their Instagram page, and they have a resource, right? So the responsibility of the student support is to like, kind of share that. It's quite easy to spread and keep it on our highlights. But then, it gets this, like, we can't, like, the position, we can't, I can't do this job. The future person can't do this job, it is not granted access. And then when the request like wants to do it, it might be too late, right? Because one guy's already on the process.
Yeah, so sending something should be shared, so another event from another committee or.
Another, it could be an external resource.
Yeah.
Not related to MSA, but it's helpful to be important.
I experienced that issue a little bit with your being sent resources and events to post on the CMSA Instagram, and a lot of those would either, I would not sure they would have confirmation from VPs or execs, or I wasn't sure whether it was, so I think having that issue, we need to have somebody in comms who could be contacted about resharing, reposting, having these kind of resources shared, who then could pass them on. We need a process first of confirmation that it's okay, and then having somebody as a liaison to deal with that within comms especially, rather than having it get passed through multiple channels, which was the issue that I had this year when it came to reposting resources.
Yeah, I'd say like have someone under the postings coordinator work directly with the position you talked about. So that's kind of their only job is to receive requests of stuff to repost, and either the VP gives them like relies on them to confirm or like double check that, or go back to the VP and double check it. But I think yeah, I think either one will work, but having like one specific person with that specific job to repost actually share stuff from external resources.
That's we take someone's job, they go into that. We post job. So we take external, also have like in the comments, have their Instagram account. And also they're not saying we can comments that repost, maybe their team means out that. But the person who goes behind and further research to see if this is okay for us to repost on the story or to collaborate on, then that would be the external prerogative. So I just wanted to clarify that. And if the big external housing was minimum, I don't think another person should go ahead and be like a underneath like a coordinator position to go and do that job, because it really requires a lot of I think digging into that organization, what's this event about, what's going to be talked about, how we would work with on the board, and the external would probably be the most solid going on that.
I'm just wondering because running for Tom's probably the most work of anybody else. So how would you say, because like when people are messaging you, like everybody has requests, like maybe this was this caption. And it could be a little bit transactional. So what would you like honestly other people to do in order to make sure that you feel like you're working in a team instead of somebody like sending you all their demands and then they don't like the poster, they have a new demand. So what would you say, yeah, if you want to do interacting with you, what would you do interacting with your own community?
In terms of everybody else interacting, I think one thing that I experienced, one thing that I thought would have been good coming out of conference this year was having more direct lines of communication. So if somebody wants to request a graphic, instead of going through the homes and having that, there's somebody, you can talk to graphics, having somebody for captions, because I had that experience of multiple people asking me for the same thing. Having a direct line to there to have somebody who they can talk to, who's directly working with what they need, I think is important. I think that also goes into delegating to the team and having those clear lines of communication and not having it. I don't know what it is, having it like unclear of who's doing what. I think that's important, and that also makes it easier in terms of inter-exec communication as well, to know that you can talk, I will put you in contact with this person, and then from there, that can be a conversation that I can be involved in, but that also means that they can have more direct communication, and that the delegation is stronger in comms as well, in terms of who communicates with whom.
Yeah, I think building on that, it's so we do, like I said, we have the graphics request channel, which is a form that sends a messaging channel for the comms people. So a big part of it, and I know I just struggled with that, is just making sure all the VPs only send requests through that form, and that they do not directly ask either VP comms or other people in comms for requests, because then it puts a lot more pressure on that person, and maybe they're not even the right person for the job. And then the second part of it is having people know comms coordinators. I think a big part of it, like other VPs and other coordinators and other committees don't know the coordinators in comms. So if they have anything that they want to request from comms, they go to the VP, even though it would be more suitable to contact that coordinator themselves. So having coordinators, like I said, have them like strict positions for them, and have people know who's in charge of what, and yeah.
So, you're right, this is a graphic form, but I know we were there at the beginning of the year, there was a channel and everybody also in it. But then that changed. And now we've not been able to talk to people. So my question to you is, would you bring it back? And I guess, the reason they did that is because a lot of people had been feedback. And it wasn't competing to make the graphic. Or maybe.
Yeah.
So would you say, what would you do next year? Would you keep it like that, like everyone the graphic form? Like you don't get input from other people, or would you open it up to people who do their input?
So I was directly working with Aisha to reach that form solution. So I'm definitely keeping it. It was putting a lot of pressure on different individuals. So also so the form is one thing, and also in the channel, VPs still have access to message. So if they wanna, if there's modifications to their requests, they can send that. But the main thing is to not directly like DM the VP or a coordinator, because then it puts a lot more pressure on them. Yeah, and I think part of it also having regular meetings, and if any coordinators or other VPs have issues with the way it's working, to get feedback and improve as needed.
For me, I can't speak, I was not involved in graphics this year, so I can't speak to the effectiveness of one versus the other. I think in terms of that, I would need to take in feedback from committee members, people who actually work on the graphics, who have experience, who prefer one way or the other, as well as VPs, and then go from there. I will go one.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan to both of you for running. I can see, Maimuna, you have more experience with the posting side, and Bassam, you have more experience with the graphics side. So you both bring something different to the table. So my question is kind of, I've seen VP Comms past 3 years maybe. There's always a lot of excitement to like to have ideas like relating to new content, like videos, like reels, for example, or like special reminders for certain times of the year or whatever. And those ideas are really great. But I think what ends up happening is once you're actually in the position, you get super overwhelmed with the amount of requests you come in. And also all those ideas require graphic creation, right? And planning. And that's the first stage. And that's really your job, is to manage all of these requests. You will get last minute requests almost on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis, right? That's just the reality of it. And so you get so overwhelmed with that there's no time to like work on the other like special ideas. So I'm just like emphasizing that that's kind of your main responsibility, is to be able to create that content first. So my question is, what experiences do you have in managing a team to be able to like respond to those requests? Because it's a lot of pressure and you're gonna have to, that's like your number one job, is to create the content. Posting it or coming up with other ideas is secondary. So my question is, how do you really organize yourself? How do you organize your team? And maybe what are some experiences that you have that will help you like execute and meet the very strong demand that you're gonna face?
I think I have a fair amount of experience with that this year, especially last minute. When somebody does reminders and Instagram stories that would get requests to advertise things that were very last minute. And so I think a strong part of that within comms in being able to deal with these last minute requests, and also creating content, is having that work balance among the team, and knowing who's doing what. And so that if something last minute comes in, who is busy doing something else and who is capable of handling that at this moment. I think that's really important to have a setup in place for that. Within the team, to me, is the most important setup there. I've had experience dealing with the last minute issues, having been somebody who does a lot of posting on Instagram, who does a lot of posting from events, etc. I feel like that would help me in terms of being able to deal with those last minute requests, and those last minute issues that are faced with events and coverage of content. I think that prepared me a lot, having worked closely with Aisha as well, on those issues.
So for experience for me, I have a lot of experience doing last minute graphics with comms this year, as well as IW graphics this year, which was even more last minute than just comms graphics. And besides that, I also work with Space Ottawa and do their graphics. So handling all three at some point, or just two, did get me in the habit of like managing last minute tasks better. And yeah, so I will see like how often, like you said, if it's weekly or daily, and if it's to that extent, I would say even have just a volunteer or a coordinator for the last minute stuff. So it doesn't like overwork people or have someone like unwillingly do a graphic and then this turn out because I didn't want to.
Sometimes moms can be like a very, like you're in a position which is like you're there to be critiqued all the, like with an exposure to it. Every committee will have issues with you. They're gonna have feedback for you. It's not because you're not doing a good job, because they perhaps have a different thing in their minds, which they want to be advertised. And it can get very disheartening for someone to be in your position, be putting in all the work, but then at the end, be told this is how I actually wanted it. You do this wrong, fix this, fix that. How are you gonna stand on your own feet and tell them this is what they're getting? Right? And you know, this is actually a better, how are you gonna convince the person who's coming to you that the thing that you've made is better to be put on, you know, for display? And it'll perhaps even bring more views, more attraction. Instead of just being kind of told at every point, at every event, possibly.
For me, I think one thing that can help deal with that is clear communication between the executives of what's wanted and what they're asking for. That's the first step. If in the end, it's not what they're looking for, I think at some point it does defer to the experience of the comms team. It defers to the person who's doing the graphic, how last minute is the graphic, how much time do they have, what resources do they have for posts, captions, again, how much time do they have to actually put it together, how much information, how much resources were they given for that. And then at that point, I do think it becomes deferred to the comms team and the VP of comms. And I think that having clear communication between executives is a strong point, but then eventually it does become deferred to the comms team's experience when posting and having that experience doing those things.
Yeah, I think also a big part of it is having confidence both the VP and the coordinators that and it comes back to training them and having, you know, strong bases for their work. And if they have the confidence that what they're doing is best and is for MSA's best interest, then it should be communicated respectfully with the VP. That's one part. And the other part is I've experienced this myself is VPs sometimes don't send like a detailed vision of what they have, and then they come and complain of what we're doing is not exactly what they want. So I think part of it is modifying the graphics request form and making sure all the VPs need to put as much information in their request as possible. And like if they have a specific vision in mind, then they need to communicate it clearly. Otherwise, the comms team have their like freedom of creativity basically to make happens.
Okay, I have a question. First of all, I want to apologize on behalf of my team. It sounds like we give you a hard time this year. But my question is, so you guys talked a lot about delegation, right? The solution to a lot of the questions is I'll delegate it to my coordinator, right? Which is good, right? But at the same time, as VP Comms, it's your responsibility to make sure that, first of all, you know, things follow the brand guide, things follow our values, whatever, all the above. My question is, our graphics and our social media are like almost the face of the MSA. And so it's important to be fun and to be creative, but you also want to do that while also being professional and upholding our values. And there are certain words, certain graphics that might connote certain things that don't align with our values. So my question is, how do you make sure that, you know, especially if you're delegating a lot, how do you make sure that everything that you put out, knowing that it's your responsibility at the end of the day, how do you make sure that it actually follows our values? And how do you also communicate that with your team so that they're all on the same page?
So I think a big part of it is just being proactive and from the beginning, being clear with the graphics coordinators and volunteers of what our vision is for the best graphics that are interactive but also respectful, as well as like it has been going now for a while that, you know, after the coordinator does a graphic, volunteer does a graphic, they double check with the VP, and if there's any issues, they also double check it with the VP that requested it. So it's double checked from 2 VPs at least, and if there's any issue, we just make it clear to the coordinator of what might make an issue. I actually had this experience this year at the beginning, which I did a graphic and then I received feedback that it might be controversial or whatnot. I didn't really understand, but I was like, okay, whatever, you know, like, people know, like, these people have more experience than I do, and you know, if they think that it might be controversial, then I'll just try to find something else. Yeah, and just overseeing all the graphics and captions and all the other things that go online that you know, they're appropriate and they're still interactive.
I think having a clear vetting criteria within small, so before something is made or created, that we have this idea, this the criteria, not even vetting, but something to keep in mind when making something. So certain values, branding, whatever goes into that list that people can then look at and take into consideration when making. That does not mean that there will not be a vetting process when the creation is done, specifically with palms and when we requested it to make sure that this is something that we think is fit and suitable to post on the Instagram. But having that process in place before somebody even creates something, to then not have those issues overwork as well with it.
So the next activity that we have is admin. So after will be management platform inshallah, and we have one more inshallah. Sure.
Okay, so Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm gonna try to keep this short and brief, so like I'm fasting and like I know everyone else is too. And also in the end, when you guys ask questions, give me like a second or two to think of them, because like I'm on my last minutes. Anyways, Bismillah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So first off, I would like to talk about like why I even chose to run for this position. So Usman was like the last VP admin, and he was actually a huge reason of like he motivated me to run for VP admin. And like I wanted to do something that has to do with MSA. I wanted to be more involved. I wanted to like I was thinking about like VP internal or something like that, but like I wanted to be more involved. I wanted to help the brothers, the sisters after seeing like how amazing it is on IAW and like all these events. And I wanted to help in any way. And then Usman motivated me. He was like, okay, you could also help to be admin and everything. So and I'm not sure if Usman. Oh, he's there. Okay, thank you so much, Usman. He's in the Zoom. Anyways, so Bismillah. So as a VP admin, of course, I work to ensure that the admins, like the admin committee, serves the MSAs and committee's needs effectively. And I'm dedicated to aligning my goals with the other VPs and like with the MSA. And I intend to like implement specific things that Usman also helped me I'm gonna keep talking about Usman a lot because Usman is going to be a huge like part of the VP admin for at least like the first month or two. Until like the relationship like with him, it's gonna be helping me like become a better VP admin. Okay, so the first goal, like my goals inshallah are gonna be to enhance the MSA's workflow and help increase the capabilities and effectiveness of all the MSA committees with the VPs and everything. And evaluation of the performance of the NAS as the NAS software platform as a centralized data center for event planning and file sharing, and also improvements to our current email system. And like the emails are all over the place, so I'm gonna have to also, according to Usman, I'm gonna have to figure that out and figure out like I'll go into detail at the end, and like optimize our performance and improve our communication by making use of the technology such as Discord and the website and like our online presence and engagement. Okay, so going into a little bit of detail about like the NAS and what's it called, and the like emails and how I'm going to do that. Basically, I'm thinking of being very, like I said in the beginning, being very engaged with the with the VPs and kind of being like that annoying person who asks like, hey, how you doing? What have you been up to? This is that. And kind of like helping them with what's it called, like making sessions or explaining how we're gonna use the NAS and like helping them like, hey, this is how you're gonna use it, like information, give them the information about it. Like first I'll have to learn it myself and then I'll help them. And the emails and everything, of course, like I said, I'll be the annoying person who keeps asking like, hey, listen, we're gonna have to change this. This is that. And I think I'm pretty good at it. I'm not sure yet. I was also the reason, or like I helped with the moving of the newsletter to communications. So
You're making enemies now.
sorry.
You're making enemies now.
Oh, really, it's a good thing. Like now it's under communication, so like it makes more sense. It's like all the graphical. I was the one who was doing the newsletter for that, and yeah, and then like I helped out with it. Yeah. So what else? So yeah, so some other things on the platform, if you guys like seen it online, was like I wanted to help with like IAW and like of course IAW is like one of the greatest events hosted by MSA students, and like I was aiming to find out and like help the future IAW coordinators with like the IAW website, the resources that they may need to succeed and keep getting IAW better and better. But then at the same time, that could be like a kind of like external, VP external. So what I'm thinking, oh no, actually, like IAW, right? And then like other things like, okay. So another point is that I'm also involved in other committees or like other clubs, which is the ESA and SJP, and let's say like there's just half of PSA, and and like I'm trying to. Like basically, like I have friends in these clubs, and basically I also wanted to kind of like get them into our like MSCA, come to the events, come to the iftars, come to this. This is a like all of my friends like, hey, it's a MSCA is actually a good place. This is that, right? Please join. But basically what I'm thinking is like what I was thinking was to help the VP external to kind of get them involved with these clubs, kind of with IW, for example, like if they need any help, of course I'll prioritize my priorities like for admin, but then I would also like inshallah try to help them. Hey, if you need any help, like I'm here. I could try to find the resources if I cannot help you, and so on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
So I have a question. Let's straight to the point. Admin stuff is hard for every other exec to understand. Even when someone like Osman will be giving his meeting minutes, everyone's on airplane mode because they don't understand what's happening. How are you going to make it more understandable for the rest of the team?
So do you mean like the meeting minutes, like
What's happening in your team?
So you mentioned when you're at one, I don't think many people know that it's still.
yeah, many people are not gonna like it, but we're gonna.
Where is it?
Osman like mentioned what's called NAS is gonna be very necessary for us to implement everything.
Is it like the coding?
Oh no, it's the sorry, it's the thing. It's like where we're gonna put like I think like Google Drive or something like that.
Oh,
Storage.
Storage, yeah. Yeah, it's like an account, right? Like of course, like I'm gonna still need to sit down with Osman and talk about it and all of that, and like help. He's gonna help. What's it called, like change, like give me all the information, right? But yeah. So for NAS, basically, yes, there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be against it. Maybe everyone's gonna be against it most, but inshallah, after I learn it myself and kind of like simplify it as much as possible, and then like make these sessions with the VPs and kind of like help show them like, hey, this is how to use it, so that and being there if they have any questions, right? Then after that, they can also show it to their own committees and everything. Then everyone can use it. Inshallah, it's simple. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of struggles. We'll do the struggle, inshallah, as they can. That's-
I think, like, I think, so the there is not that, people who are against it, but people who don't know it. And you know, and that's saying a lot considering we're starting this year, like, we still didn't know what it was, or we have that in here. So how, and you know, and maybe, you know, depending on the team, and depending on people's kind of technological literacy, it will differ, so what will you do, or like what steps do you think you can take to make it more confident, yes, or it's comprehensive, somebody who doesn't know what it is, or doesn't know why it's necessary that you know, no longer
So first off, from what I remember, like Usman told me that the previous president, I think in MSA, like they already bought like an entire like 10 terabytes or something like that from NAS. So that's why like we need to use it, and we don't have like that kind of like we didn't buy like that much storage or that kind of storage in like another software or something like that. Okay, but yeah. So like I said, we're gonna have to like do specific like sessions for different VPs, I guess, for different people. And I would kind of have to learn it as much as possible myself to be well informed in it, in order to be able to teach it or like inform other people and other VPs.
Yeah, we're anti-NAS. We're anti.
Coming back,
Huh?
I feel like you're, after learning it, you will be anti-NAS too.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
We'll see. Inshallah. Go ahead. Elsie.
I'll take you off.
Okay.
How do you plan on managing your time? Because with the newsletter, you know, there were times where you would be sending out a draft at 3 a.m. and asking them to check verify.
Okay.
How do you plan on managing your time?
Okay, so the newsletter, there was some issues. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, the newsletter was like had some issues of like the graphics being late and so on. And then I would have to. So yeah, I think it was like it was a little bit after version. I'll be like, okay, to get motivation to make a professional, you know. So I'll make a professional and then finish it, then put in some things. But yes, so managing my time. Well, first off, I'm a 3D computer systems engineering student, and like right now, and for, inshallah, for the next like 8 months, I'm going to be doing co-op. So alhamdulillah, it's gonna be less work. Okay. And of course, like the meetings, for example, they would have to be after work times. And I'm pretty sure like it will also be helpful for like other people who are studying in the morning. And yeah, so like I have a lot of free time right now. Alhamdulillah, and inshallah, like it'll stay the same moving forward, and like I'll be able to manage the time properly, inshallah.
There's a question from us.
There is a question from us.
Someone wants to ask a question? Okay, we first off, we'll start first, because
Talk about Usman and like you want to go a lot, right? So he talked about a cheese making business.
so,
You talked about a cheese making.
oh,
Are you aware of that?
sure.
Like, what are your what strategies are you gonna implement to have that cheese making?
I remember the cheese making event was like different cheeses and something. They're gonna have to try it. So, but like I do not know yet. I have not been to the cheese event yet. So inshallah we'll see. We'll see. What was the question?
Do you,
Usman, do you want to go ahead?
Assalamu alaikum.
oh, wait a second.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So I'm just gonna go through the questions I had planned. So I wanted to ask what your objective for this year is, and how are you gonna structure your team to accomplish that objective? And the reason I'm asking is because for me, because I did 2 years, the first year I had one objective, and I kind of tasked my team accordingly in order to achieve that. So and then the second year as well. So with admin, you can't do everything. So you have to prioritize. You have to pick and choose from your responsibilities what to focus on. So I want to see how what your focus is gonna be for this year and how you're gonna structure your team to do that.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I did mention a lot of things, and what I want to help with in the MSA and so on. But the priority will always go to like the admin like tasks, and like those, of course, like they include the things that I've already talked about, like NAS and the accounts, Google accounts. We'll try to figure that out, inshallah. And like the emails and passwords are all over the place, so we have to figure that one out. And yeah, so my priorities would be on like the meetings, attending the meetings, and like from all around like the MSA, and being there like engaged with the meetings, and understanding like what is going on in order to help help whenever someone like needs any help, for example. And yeah, like, does that answer your question? So
Yeah, so that answers like the first half of the question. But like currently the admin committee is more geared towards website and to an extent design and events, because that was the focus for this year. So if your objective would be the recurring tasks and just maintenance stuff, are you going to restructure your team, and what are what types of team members will you be looking to get to help you do that?
yeah, so of course, like depending on like the tasks. So the tasks so far, the websites, right, and the emails and the NAS. So like, of course, the structure would be around that, and like, let's say people who maybe like, who knows, maybe someone out there knows how to use the NAS software, maybe they can also come, or someone or someone like who like knows the web design, for example, like I'm pretty sure we also have like a sister this year who helped with the IAW website, so something like that, for example. And yeah, like that's how I'll structure like around the tasks that we need to like implement that.
All right. So actually that your answer to the first question kind of answers my other question, which was I was going to ask how you were going to balance the continual like recurring tasks with one-time projects, and it seems like you're going to focus on the prior. So I'll skip that question. I'm going to go to the last question, which is what are 3 things you're going to keep, and what are 3 things you're going to change in the admin committee?
Give me a second.
Other than the newsletter.
Okay, so I'm gonna go like through them. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to give you exactly 3 this month. Let's see. So off the top of my head, like the what's it called? The 3 things, like, let's say that I would keep would be like some of the members from the team, for like I just mentioned, like I'm not sure the sister's name. I forgot. I totally forgot. But the one who helped with the website, for example, maybe like try to keep that sister or someone who is like that sister for that exact like a coordinator for the exact job, you know, like the website and everything, who can help whenever we need something that needs to be changed in the website and everything. And yeah, and some of the things that might need to be changed are the change that like basically the NAS software. That's that's like changing right there, but what else? What else? Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that like a little bit more, Usman, and then touch back with you, and like you can help me with that. 100%. You're gonna need help with that. But you know,
So. The admin committee is usually like this. For people like people. Which are like trying to get involved in getting stuff done. I'm not sure. I want to know what your thoughts are on perhaps getting training out to more people within that committee and not just specializing one person for a task. So that if that person has, let's say, wants to drop out for any specific reason, you're not left to put their back, right? Which no one there. So, what are your thoughts about training more than just one specific person to do a job?
no, that's actually like a good idea of like basically having like not just like one person, but like let's say like a small team within like the specific task that we need to finish, like let's say the website. And basically, if someone has a lot of work, or someone needs to do something, then someone else can take over, or they can divide work between each other, or like I can like assign other people, like, hey, I'm gonna train you how to do this. Okay, I'll teach you how to do it, and then you can start doing it after, or yeah, like that's actually, of course, like that's an amazing idea. Like that should be how it works. And sorry.
Is that something you're doing?
Yeah, that is actually something. See this one? I'm getting more points. But yeah, and what's it called? I think the admin team right now, I think it was like around seven people. Yeah.
What do you think about Discord moderation? I think that's under admin as well.
Yeah, like we're gonna I also mentioned with the platform, like we're gonna have to maintain the Discord and like make it better, right? And like if there's the moderations, like that would also like help and so on, and like keeping up with them and so on. Go ahead.
Where do you draw the line of content moderation?
Sorry, I can hear you. Someone else? No comments.
There you When it comes to moderating versus work, where do you draw the line between content moderation and free speech?
Okay. So, of course, Natiani, here, like the MSA, right? Like we say family and faith, right? The brotherhood, the sistership, and everything. Okay, we're all like trying to become better Muslims, so like we're here like as a family in order to like all intelligent inshallah today, you know? So that is like kind of even like the reason, like my intention is to help in anything, just to become a better Muslim, become more involved and so on, right? So like the moderation is going to be moderations, of course, but then like free speech, of course, it's amazing, right? But then at the same time, like some things, let's say we don't have to talk about it, let's say on Discord, right? Some things, if people actually want to, like, let's say debate or something, you know what, we can make those events. Some other VPs can make the events, but for me, like, let's say I would vote to not have something like that in Discord, and not to discuss things that would not help us like become better Muslims, you know? Something. Yeah.
So, this is just my, this is no, this kind of, but like, what happens is, maybe it's the guy that also very funny to be, and there are years that are better. I don't, and this is from outside, I don't follow anything, but like, why is it always necessary to completely change the backside of it, right? And it's like the website is like, what's up is great, everyone likes it, and families video of the meeting, right? But then, I don't know, because I feel like the admin, some role is a support role. A lot of areas where it has to not only kind of rely on their own like ideas and stuff, but it has to like definitely take the feedback of other like other people that are outside, because it's like a visual representation of the action. If I don't find the newsletter feeling them, maybe the MSA is like this and all that, you know. I'm saying some people think about that. Also, the second thing is, like, in terms of what's happening before, is that how are you going to like ensure that like the roles are advertised, right? Because it's not it's a community that's quite small and often gets shadowed by like larger community. But how are you going to ensure that people actually get into positions? So, personally, I wouldn't want to get positions. So like I'm saying, people might have that thing idea that, oh, okay, admin is not necessary or whatever. So how are we gonna?
Okay, so I understand your first question. The second part, I'm not fully understand. So let me just answer the first one, and then yeah. So the first one, of course, like you asked, like why would we need to change, like if everything's already working and so on. I'm not sure if you're aware, but for example, there was the newsletter link in order to register. It was broken for a very long time. Okay, and then like it would be fixed in one part, but then like the other page would still not work, and then like it had to like we had to fix it, right? So then there's always room for improvement, right? And there's always room for improvement, and like there's always room to make something better, to change it better. So it's not always like the change is not always bad, right? And of course, like if everyone, like let's say for example Usman, right? Usman knows the role, knows he's been here for 2 years, and he knows, like for example, NAS, it's gonna be good, right? Inshallah, that is true, and inshallah we can try it. If it does not work, then we can change it back. But like we know that what's it like we have to at least try it and to change it and like to make some improvements to the website and so on. What was your second point?
Second point was that how are you going to advertise
The positions taken the admin committee within the admin committee.
Because it's quite small, it sometimes takes more effort, almost done.
To be honest, like my first go-to is to talk to people, right? To talk to people like Muslims who let's say maybe have not been involved in MSA before, that I know personally, okay? And then get them to talk to other people. And then second is yeah, like to invite as many like Muslims as possible to like some of the events. I'm pretty sure have like community events, right? Where all the MSA people can come to. Yeah, and then like get them there, and then from there I would be able to advertise like hey, listen, anyone knows anything about web design? No, and you want to get some good deeds? Why not? Yallah, come help your Muslim brothers and sisters. And yeah, it's not hard, to be honest. Like, inshallah, I mean, we'll get a lot of volunteers and a lot of people who will join.
Okay, so this is why we have to end it here. Sorry. So now with our last committee, we have the Vice President Finance, Ziad Sayed, if you could come and present your platform.
Yes. Alaikum.
Right.
My name is Zaid. I'm a third year student studying accounting. My platform isn't too complicated. Just a few points to go over. So firstly, I was hoping to host a multitude of events, like most likely fundraisers, given that it's for DP Finance. So we do that by partnering with various organizations, such as Islamic Relief, HCI, mosques as well, to raise money. But also, aside from fundraising, big hit this year was the finance lectures. So I definitely want to bring those back. They'll be very important. But then in terms of like fundraising events, like barbecue, bake sales, as usual, bring back the speaker fundraiser, another big hit. And another thing I want to introduce is various sports tournaments, brothers and sisters. So yeah. Second point is to increase engagement within the finance committee. To do so, I'd like to, obviously I can't run all the events myself. So one big thing would be for them to take full ownership of various events and delegate tasks respectively, so that all members feel like they're part of something, feel like they're contributing. Third point is to work closely with VPE to acquire various sponsorships for the MSA, to ensure that not only we're secure for this year, but for years ahead as well. And then lastly is to promote transparency within the exec team, to ensure that the support of the finance committee is felt throughout the rest of the exec team.
Just on for money, it's important position. So we have a limited supply of money, obviously. How can we find the balance between wanting to spend money on events and saving money later on? So how do you find the balance here? Or they actually want to have this event that can cost additional money, but we will also need money throughout the year. How do we find that balance of spending versus?
I think one important thing to do is, as far as evaluating the events, what kind of event they use. We want to always make sure that they're following the MSA values, Islamic values. But then another thing is it's important, not to be wasteful with money. We don't just want to accept every single event that comes forward. And like I said, it's important to budget properly at the beginning of the year, so that we don't have to have events versus for other things that are necessary in the MSA, such as the iftars this year, which are new and daily. We need to prioritize certain things over others based off of our values and considering just how wasteful something can be. You're gonna be working with living hours. Some committees might have more events than others. I think you might know that there's a budget proposal document for any committee that plan on doing an event. Yeah, they would fill out possible and impossible stuff. Now, how are you gonna get them to fill this out? And make sure they fill it out accurately and give accurate numbers, and also make them stick to the budget. Because unknowing costs will pop up, perhaps have to the unaccounted for. How will we make sure this get like the proper right? So I guess to do that, you can work with the finance committee to create such a template, some other committees like the communications mentioning how there's not enough details given to the VP and to the team in terms of submitting the requests. So I think really important to kind of emphasize not being vague in terms of expenses, trying to capture all expenses, but at the same time, review can be done by the finance committee and can be sent back and forth until the final budget is approved. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
You mentioned, individual financial. So what do you, I guess, what would you do differently from this year? And especially, because some committee roles are like all the event planning ones, like there's a lot of new people. And some of the prom, the admin, the finance staff, the more individual. So how do you motivate, people in your committee to get that work done? And still be accountable to the role when you're not working for.
Jay, can you elaborate a little bit?
Okay, so some have, and you have, they're, you're filling out spreadsheets, you are reversing people. You're making. You're making planning kind of documents, so it's a lot of it is visual work as opposed to what some of the other MSA planning and doing, which is a lot of planning with other people and, and for some people that's part of the meeting in that space to kind of meet other people. So some of the finance tasks are more kind of individual tasks. And so it requires a lot of individual motivation to find it. So how will you motivate them, lead their members, make sure that they're, submitting the work that they have to time for them?
Right. I guess one thing we can do for that is hold regular meetings, like check-up meetings, to ensure that if anybody needs help with any of their work, that can be addressed. As well as just go over general updates for the whole team. But just generally try to be a motivating leader and try to be open and like invite people to talk if they need help or anything. Yeah, that's what I.
Two questions. One of them have a follow-up question, and we might be a bit difficult. So, okay. So first question is, IDRF and IRA have been previous sponsors for the past year, and compared to other years, we've cut ties with sponsors as well. So just really appeal and reach to that. Do you believe that we should acquire more sponsors for this year? And if so, which organizations will you be targeting? And how much will you try to acquire? I have a follow-up question.
What's your follow-up question?
The follow-up question would be. Yeah, actually, that was the follow-up question was within it. So like dividing organization and charity, like specific organizations and charity who like to work with.
So first of all, when trying to acquire sponsorships, it's important to work closely with BPE to ensure that whatever organizations we're trying to collaborate with has approval from BPE. So definitely working with them closely. Obviously, I'm sure there have been reasons why we have stopped sponsorships with various organizations and why we going with some. So that would be something that obviously we have to look into in terms of who else we would want to collaborate with. The question was how much as well? How much should we try to actually? Yeah, I think like right now we're already collaborating with many of the big organizations in Ottawa that we have like access to. I can't think of any off the top of my head, any new organizations, but that definitely has something we'll have to look into. And sorry, your follow-up question?
This is the second thing. Okay. The second question is, first of all, the second question is that we, from my experience of doing finance, what we usually do is we do annual sponsorship contracts. And this question is going to be a good question. We're giving an idea to something very different. So what other MSAs have established that we haven't established as part of MSA,
is an event per event basis contract. Where, let's say, for example, SO is, I think, doing what are they doing? Right? An aluminum dinner, and they wanted a sponsorship because that event is too expensive, so they might acquire a sponsorship of the cost of your policies and whatnot. Do you think an event per event, like event by event contract basis, is something you look into? And what do you think the downsides and the advantages of that thing?
A good question. So event by event, you mean like
Let's say, okay, let's say we reach out to IR and be like, hey, we want to do an event. Give us $1,000 on the side and you pay for everything and fundraise for you. Do you think that is an event? I mean, that is an option. What obstacles potentially come from that?
it's an option for sure. I think currently we do have the full year sponsorships, if I'm not wrong. So with that, we do have commitments from both sides. The thing with per event basis is that you don't have a year-long commitment. So in terms of like the outlook for the whole year, you won't know if we're secure for the whole year. Which I want to aim for at the beginning of the year so we can budget accordingly. Having an annual contract gives us a better idea of how much we can spend on various events throughout the year. IW is an event-based contract. I guess IW is a little bit different. Sometimes it's the biggest event of the year. It'd be kind of hard to incorporate that. Although it's not impossible, it would be kind of hard to incorporate that in an annual contract. But again, that's something we can look into.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just gonna clarify. Guys, I'm just gonna clarify. We do both, I think. Like we have contracts, but then we've had individual sponsorships for events all year as well. So it's almost like a hybrid model that we already have. Yeah, just to be clear.
Yeah, and that's something we can definitely continue. I don't see any issues with having both. Because sometimes, like for example, let's say we get an annual contract and we realize it's not enough, then of course we need to do it on a per event basis, which is, in my opinion, still okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But sorry, Hassan, you asked some obstacles that come with that.
Yeah, like what would be some obstacles? You did mention the fact that that's about
I was gonna say, in terms of like fulfilling commitments, sometimes there's some issues with that. So making sure that all commitments are fulfilled in a contract. You know, like when we're handling money, it's obviously it's an event, a big event. So make sure that handling properly, fulfilling all your duties.
Kind of like going down with this already. My question is, what is your approach to motion? How do you interact with them? And I want to know this because they're going to be kind of a bank for text. Are you going to be giving a blind text to everyone, or is there another process?
So I mentioned previously, of course, it's important not to be wasteful. And I also just mentioned it is an event. So no, I'm not going to be giving lunch next week. You know, there has to be a justified reason as to why money is being given out. I think maybe like a process can be made with the finance committee to incorporate something like such as like VPE does with their dealings, kind of creating like almost like a screening sense to incorporate something like that. But if your question was how do I
What's your attitude towards money?
Absolutely.
But part of that is how many people will you give access to, let's say, the money law? And who would be trust with those items?
So definitely they would have to be within the finance committee. In terms of who, like, yeah, so people in the finance committee and like the,
What they're not trustworthy?
what if they are not trustworthy? Do I know they're not trustworthy or that's something on finance?
Hypothetical, you might find out later.
Right,
Just making something up.
right. Obviously, if I find out they're not, if I know they're not trustworthy, then I don't give them that privilege of having access to certain things, such as the bank and the cash box. But you know, again, just doing a like a screening of the individual, looking at their past involvement. I think that's we already have like an established, I think, the finance committee overall committed individuals, so that's not something hopefully to worry about. But yeah, so it's okay. What's your question?
So a lot of the work that you will do is meant to be done from the environment. Not even the presence of the adult, so I think almost like creating and producing. So based on that, how can you because some of the some or most of them are doing something that we have your opinion.
Right, I think the main thing for that would be to do with the events. Like I mentioned previously, like having like specific teams take full ownership of events. Where like I'm not so much involved. I like the template. Gives us obviously gives us a sense of ownership and involvement within the committee. First things need to be approved at the end of the day, which would come down to the top at the end. But overall, letting them, you know, be engaged within those events. Like I said, there's not much. There's a lot of confidentiality that comes with the position that the committee just simply can't help with. So I think the main thing would be the events. That's my idea.
So I was wondering like what your idea of wastefulness is, and like if you have like concrete examples, and like how would you become like a bunch of organizations comfortable, because like, sometimes like you find somewhere, but then they don't carry it out like that, and like the wastefulness ends up happening anyways. So,
Concrete example. Well, for one, like I can just think of like food, for example. Oftentimes there's leftover food at our events that gets wasted. So, you know, budgeting accordingly, learning from the past. I think like we often go off of like signups, just as an example, for food, like we go based off of signups. But you know, looking at past trends, and you know, adjusting accordingly. So, for example, if we have, I'll use IW as an example. We had you know, like around 175 volunteers. How many of those actually showed up to the events specifically? Even we had specific signups for the events, and still there was less show up. So, you know, taking into consideration those kind of things, learning from the past, and trying to implement better in the future. Does that answer your question?
Then share with us two things that, you're looking forward to. And two things that you see will be challenging.
I can start with the two things that'll be challenging. One is I think I struggle with this like personally as well. It's sometimes hard to say no. But I think that's something that I'm gonna have to learn and learn how to say no to certain things. And then another thing is, which we talked about, obviously, it's there's a lot of confidentiality that comes with the position. So having the committee and the rest of the MSA understand that confidentiality would be another challenge. Something I'm looking forward to.
What if you do trust someone with the solution that you have, and they end up not keeping the promise? So what do you do as a result of that situation? Do you have any consequences for this, or do you have any? What do you do?
That's a good question. Firstly, I'd say the decision wouldn't come down to only me, because an individual decision can be biased. So I think it's important to get feedback from others, such as I know we have a councilman where it could remind me like the man and then the council, but also like advisory board says, right? Advisory board. Consulting them, consulting the president, obviously, other VPs as well, taking in their consideration. Not that I would like per se listen to everything that I have to say, or rather not implementing everything they have to say, but getting different points of view. But in terms of consequences, that would definitely be that would have to be implemented. Because that's not something that should just slide. Obviously, like if you're trusting them with information and they're not keeping their promise, I would say probably wouldn't be the best idea to trust them again with something. But again, depending on the situation. So I didn't even answer but two things I'm looking forward to, I guess. Yeah, we are over passionate, and I don't.
No answer. Okay.
I would say. Getting experience working with other organizations in terms of sponsorships. I think it would help professional career as well. It would give me a really good experience, and also I guess having ownership for a big thing, sense of responsibility for work.
So Jazakallah khair everyone for attending today. I will be sending an email today to the voter to vote. You guys will have until Monday, April 3rd, 9 p.m. to vote. I will write this information in the email. Also, just to let you know, all of you, that your vote is amana. Make sure that you check the candidate for like a platform, and also if you want to go back to the recording, you could go back to it and listen to them like talking about their platform and answering questions. But like, I know a lot of you are friends in here, and supporting your friend is a big thing, but please just like, this is an amana. Just want to keep that in your mind. Okay, so we'll end with the dua, inshallah, and we're done for the day. So سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Thank you so much.
Ya Allah, I don't want to be in the photo.